right, welcome to our board meeting, our special meeting. I'm called to order. Notice of this meeting was given in accordance with the provisions of bylaw 0164B of the Riverside Local Board of Education, which was adopted in accordance with section 1.450 of the ORC and the Ohio Administrative Procedures Act. Bylaws of the Board of Education can be found in board docs. Mr. Placco, can we call the roll?
Lori Kniske is absent. Linda Grassi.
Here.
Denise Brewster.
Here.
Scott Fishel.
Here.
Jennifer Harding.
Here. And we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. All right, first order of business, we have discussion about, this is a work session for Auburn Academy.
All right, Mr. Hall's here to join us to kind of have a little bit of a discussion about what the Auburn Academy is and kind of our excitement surrounding it and what it exactly means and the why it came about. So when you look at kind of any type of new thing that we offer, I always like to go first to the why. And this one, the why came straight out of the strategic plan. And word for word, and step four is expand program options and delivery to meet the need of each student and grow teacher capacity and efficacy. So when you look at our Auburn juniors specifically, there's a logistical challenge with the current block schedule. We've done a lot of work this year as a district to talk about and expand personalized learning options and what that looks like. We've had a lot of success with it, but I want to share kind of what the first thing as Mr. Hall came in, one of the things we noticed, in a traditional Auburn schedule, and this is an actual legitimate schedule from a student that we pulled, when they come back, because of the way that our block schedule works and Auburn works, some of those times don't work up. So when our students return from Auburn, they go right to lunch at 11 o'clock, and they have a half-hour lunch, and then they go into class. And the class they all go into is literature and film, and that's their English 3 class. You'll notice this class is 60 minutes. And our typical class is 90 minutes. So a typical block period is 90 minutes. So our Auburn students right now traditionally get 30 minutes less of English every time they meet. And that's a significant amount. The second, on the opposite day, they have study hall because we don't have another class that meets like that. So they go to that. Then for their 4th block class, they have to fit in their math, and then right now it's either their social studies elective, or if they're in cosmetology, they have to take chemistry. So they take those classes there, and those classes are typically filled with our Auburn students as well, kind of in the same cohort going through. So they typically pick the math, either quantitative reasoning, or they can pick one of the other algebra 2 equivalents, but it's what is offered 4th block. And then they take, in this case, this one is a psychology elective. They would also take government on the other half semester as assigned to it. Next year they would have to take the government, and then they would have to take the personal finance class, and move that from a senior level class up to a junior level class. So it does limit what our Auburn students can take when they come back. You'll notice that when they select Auburn, there are some traditional problems with it. The first, like I mentioned, is they only have 300 minutes of English every 2 weeks compared to 450. I use 2 weeks because that's when you go through a full cycle. So that's when you get your 3 touches on the gold days or black days, and then your 2 touches the opposite week. So depending on what that Friday is. And only Auburn students are scheduled in that section. Another thing to note about that is that counts as a teacher's class prep. So one of our teachers is actually teaching 30 minutes, or actually 150 minutes less a week, because that's one of their periods. And our English teachers, they're not necessarily have the same equitable contact time as their colleagues, because they have those classes scheduled through. And they typically have 2 of them. So they'll have Auburn on both gold days and black days because of our high numbers of Auburn students. So those English classes are offered gold days and black days. Like I said initially, it's typically backed up to a study holiday and opposite schedule, leaving only 2 additional periods for class. So they can't necessarily knock out all the requirements that they need to. Most Auburn students are tracked together because of the limited options that we have. They cannot earn the traditional Ohio Honors Academic Diploma because of the way the schedule is set up. That requires 4 units of social studies and 4 units of science. And with this schedule, the way we have it, they can't add it up. And also limited electives are available. They can't participate. They can participate in a marching band, but they're not in a band. Some of those students are in our advanced choir and they can't participate in that advanced choir class because they can't sign up for it. So when we saw some of this, they want R3. They can't take R3 because of the other classes they have to take. When we saw this, we started to really look at some of the things that we have and build on some of the successes we currently have at the campus. And what our successes are in personalized learning, we have models for this, and we kind of wanted to put it together. The first model to look at is English 4 Seminar. The students who sign up for English 4 Seminar have voice and choice for areas of study and flexibility if they are on track to graduate. They come in, they check in, they do their thing. They're not always there because they're doing some self-directed learning on their own. Their seniors are kind of on their own. Honors English 2, taught by Mrs. Lucas. In that one, we see a lot of student agency and learning paths are utilized throughout the entire course. Those students are allowed to pick how they want to demonstrate mastery in this personalized learning. Chemistry 1 with Mrs. Kolensik. She is one who kind of provides those students a lot of learning paths to demonstrate their mastery of the units and kind of how they get there. The state of Ohio does not require specific amounts of seat time anymore. They just require mastery. So there's not the Carnegie unit seat time anymore that used to be. And the last one, Mrs. Good, she presented her quantitative reasoning class when the high school presented. She presented her group who came up there, and they showed a lot of student agency and some of those supports being the foundations of this course. So when you look at kind of where that comes from, it's there. So what is personalized learning? I know Mr. Fischel asked about that when we talk about personalized learning. When we talk about personalized learning at Riverside, it's personalized competency-based learning. So it's not just personalized, but it's about developing and showing competency along the way. And it's based in 6 basic bedrocks of kind of what it's about. The first is agency. Students being empowered to make decisions about their learning experience and how they create and apply knowledge and how they're going to demonstrate that. So we give them options on how they're going to necessarily show that they've mastered this. And it's not always the same traditional ones. They have some different opportunities to show that. They also have actionable assessments. So the assessments are the way that we show kind of where they need to go. And if they've mastered it already, they don't need to sit there and kind of continue to take it in. They can show that they've mastered this and move on and use this assessment for learning and not necessarily of learning. So assessment is just not after the post-fact. It's also kind of what do you need to know to kind of get to where you are. Learner supports.
So just a question, are you saying the student does the self-assessment?
So the student will do a pre-assessment, and then at that point the teacher will work with the pre-assessment to say this is where you're strong, this is where you need to grow, let's help you grow to get there.
And then the student determines how they're going to get there?
With the teacher. So it's not just the student saying, I'm going to go pick this. It's also the student and the teacher saying, hey, you want to show mastery in the chemical equations. Here's a couple different pathways you could do that. Let's work through what works best for you and how you learn best. One of the first things that in any personalized learning class they do is they take and complete a learner profile, which kind of shows how they learn best, what they know about themselves, kind of how do I master things? Do I master it best? By reading it, do I master it best by doing it? Do I show what do I like to do? All of those kind of things go into the learner profile, and it kind of builds on that learner profile to take them to the next steps.
How many Auburn students do we have next year?
So we're going to have about
113 right now, and there are 14 on the waiting list.
Juniors?
Yes.
We're going to have 113 kids in here together.
So we'll get to a little bit how the logistics are going to work out.
So again, the student has the options and the teacher suggests paths and the student determines the path based on teacher suggestion.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so there's no one telling the student really which way to go. They have to, if they make mistakes, and then they have to try and correct those as they go because they're making their own decisions.
So the teacher is working with the student and guiding that, more like a coach, and kind of where the teacher is coaching that student to receive and to earn that mastery.
Okay, so is there any program to where counselors and/or teachers can help these students understand their strengths before they choose the course path?
Yes.
And how is that happening? Is every student being met with
Yes.
before they choose, and who meets with them?
So we're going to get to that once I get through the kind of the concepts behind this. We'll kind of explain how the Auburn Academy, how we envision this academy to work.
But is that happening now?
No,
That's going to happen in the future.
that is a part of this kind of pilot, if you would, of a program. So as students master things and as they demonstrate master, they present and they move on to the next topic. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, I have to sit and practice this for 90 minutes. If I know it in 20, I've mastered in 20, I move on to the next one. I don't need to continue to do this math problem over and over and over again. I've reached it, I understand it, and I move forward. So it's working, and you progress, and your progress is based on mastery of it and not necessarily seat time. And the last one, again, we talked about flexible learning paths. The students learn actively using different pathways and varied pacing, kind of what works best for me along the way. And the final is these targets. So when we set these academic targets, we set the standard with a lot of rigor, and we make sure these common expectations, the knowledge, skills, and dispositions are across the board, and they're transparent and they're measurable, and that students know that ahead of time. So they know going into it that I am going to master X, Y, and Z moving forward. So how does this present the solution to our Auburn students, and kind of what will this personalized learning work with Auburn moving forward, our Auburn juniors? Who present the first of it? Personalized learning is not just something we want to keep with just this group of Auburn juniors. We started, like I said, we had some pockets of classrooms where we really have found some success in it. We needed a group of students to work as a pilot. So Auburn juniors presented a chance to be a pilot program. We want to expand this throughout school-wide with our students because we know this is kind of how our students learn best, and we can really move forward and provide additional choices. It doesn't mean this is the only way we're going to deliver instruction and content. That's not the case at all. But it does provide a pocket and an opportunity for them. So in this case, the first thing you'll notice immediately is juniors are enrolled in 4 classes per semester throughout the school year. Currently, in the way the current schedule is set up, they can only take 3. So they're going to be enrolled in 4 per semester, so we're going to add their science to that with the math, the English, and they can choose their math and English, I'll get to that, as well as their history. So classes are delivered via personalized nature by 4 core teachers and 1 intervention specialist. So we have 4 teachers who are going to sit and work with these students, and one of the intervention, and then there's an intervention specialist for our students on IEPs and our students who need additional interventions along the way. So our students are going to take English 3 seminar, math, and they can take either Algebra 2 or Quantitative Reasoning. They have choice. They're going to take they have government and personal finance, and they're going to take personal finance first and then government second semester. And then they're going to take their science, and it's going to be either chemistry or physics, universe, depending on which one they signed up for. All courses will be taught with a personalized competency-based approach to measure this content mastering. So again, it's all those 6 indicators that we went through along the way, and it's going to present them with an opportunity to get these courses every single day, to meet with them along the way. And it's going to allow them to not only earn the academic honors diploma, but as they establish this presence, they're going to open up options to participate in additional elective classes if they have it. Some of our students in Auburn really do get the schoolwork, and they're interested in this career tech, that field as well, and mastering that. And it allows them an opportunity to do other things. Our students aren't going to be in here all day. For instance, some of our students have signed up for AP classes. They're going to leave and go out to that AP class and then come back when that class is scheduled. It cannot, as they establish their presence in here and kind of where they are and get their groove, they can then go out to those other electives, like be a part of review, be a part of a band class, go out and take those things and then come back with our, and be in marching band and actually in the class during the day. They can take Art 3 if they want through a personalized approach with Art 3. We kind of work with some of the teachers for that. Those interventions are built into the day. There's not a separate time where they have to come back. Our students have a study hall at Auburn that Auburn has kind of built in, so they're going to get that as well. And they'll have more options their senior year, including work-based learning electives and CCP. Because they're getting that science class this year, the junior year, now they have the 3 sciences they need to graduate. The 4th science can give them the honors diploma, or they can do something else like a work-based learning or something else at Auburn if they choose to do that, or do internships and all that. So that's kind of the reasons why. And the teachers who we selected, based on these teachers were selected because they were exhibiting the characteristics of teachers who can do this personalized learning. They've either done it or they've kind of gone through the training as a part of it. Participation in the Auburn Academy counts as 3 of the teachers' 6 courses in their course load, and it's greater than 100 students. So it's actually in concert with the traditional student load, if not more. So it's not actually costing. We're not putting these 3 teachers and that's all they're doing. These teachers are also teaching morning blocks. They'll have 1 or 2 classes depending on the day in the morning as well, to make sure that their load is the same, if not more than what a traditional teacher would be. And they're really excited about working together with it. And like I said, it's a pilot program for the personalized competency-based learning program in concert with our strategic plan. And the vision is to scale this up. The way that we vision this program works, as our students go, they come back from Auburn, they go to lunch, they come in here for a quick check-in with a teacher who's assigned to them. So it's going to be, each teacher's going to kind of check in with them, see how they're doing, what they're doing. They'll have access to all of their grades to kind of serves as kind of an advisor, if you would, to see where they are. And then from that point, there'll be mini lessons that go on in different spaces, whether it's here in the media center or they do have access to individual classrooms. We're not going to do chemistry labs in here, so chemistry is going to go up to the chemistry lab room at a certain time to schedule chemistry at times when they need it, and work through it. And as they go through and kind of get their things, if they're good and they're caught up, they may actually be, okay, I'm done with it. It's 1:30 and I can go home. Then you're done. We're good. So it does give them some flexibility to kind of, as their work is done, as they master topics, they don't need to just sit there and just take up seat time and take up seat time. And that's what we found a lot of success, especially in our English 4 seminar. As our students become more responsible and more mature, it does kind of move them forward in the way.
How often would the advisor meet with them?
Every day.
Every day?
The vision is every day to have a touch with those
With
students.
every student? And how many students?
There's 113 right now that have been accepted to Auburn. Whether that number stays the same, whether it grows or shrinks, we'll find out by the time school starts. A couple of our kids that have got accepted to Auburn, they are trying to take some very challenging schedules in a traditional fashion. A lot of honors, a lot of AP classes, which is outstanding, but we can't do both of those things necessarily, so they may have to make some choice.
So will there be 4 advisors?
There's 5.
5 advisors? And so that's 22 point something students every day per advisor.
It's not, it could be as quick as a 30-second check and, hey, how's that math going? Because I get to know, because they're forming relationships with these kids every single day. So it could be a real quick check, and it could be a little bit longer.
And
How
what
are they
kind of
actually getting
measurement?
instruction? You said mini lessons.
Like we're
So-
talking major subjects, English,
Right,
math.
like you're talking mini lessons and then expecting children to just, these kids are just gonna do it on their own.
So
They're not
our-
gonna sit in the corner and talk to their friends.
So if you go into the teachers who we brought in, so I'll use chemistry because I was a science teacher. So when you go into Tina Klunzik, who's doing the chemistry here, when she comes in her class, she gives these groups mini lessons. They go off, they work on activities, they then come back, she checks in on them, they come back and check in and say, yes, you're doing absolutely fine, you need some help with this. They kind of come up and they've established that atmosphere. It is a different way of learning. It is extremely personalized for those students. They work off each other, but she provides those opportunities. Here's the new learning for the day. Here's where you go to kind of help. I'm going to monitor you as you need help, and then you kind of come back. And it's that group, and then she'll move on to her physical universe kids and kind of go with them and bounce back and forth. They are on for the entire time.
So as the advisor talks with that student for 30 seconds and says, hey, how's it going? And the student says great, and the student's not doing great, how do we handle that?
So the advisor has those access to all that information, and they actually have that time beforehand as a team of teachers to meet and kind of discuss these, to say, hey, if you've got so-and-so, if you've got Johnny, talk with Johnny about Johnny didn't turn his English in, and he's getting a little bit behind, let's get him caught up. So that's kind of how that works, because again, there is that block of period that starts before the students even get here, and then there's the teacher lunch. There's that block of time that can be utilized for some of those meetings and for some of that teaming to kind of move
My
forward.
concern goes back to what I said previously. It sounds like we're the caboose going after the locomotive when the locomotive's off the track. So if the kid's not doing well, and so let's say the student says, hey, I'm doing great, and then the teacher says, well, hey, Johnny didn't turn in this homework, or whatever it may be. How are we measuring that student with advisors talking with over 22 students, each person every day? How are we measuring each and every one of those students if they're doing group activities? As we know, group activities, typically 1 or 2 people take over the group, and then everyone else kind of follows. And so who's learning the best, who's learning the most, and how do you know someone's on track?
You need to come and visit Lisa Gouge's classroom in quantitative reasoning, because what you just said is not true.
Well, that's what I've heard.
I'm just telling you, I'm talking about groups and kids, just like two kids taking over a group. I've been in there, that's my background, I'm a math teacher. I've been in that classroom, I don't know how many times, and I've watched our kids have these conversations. I've watched our kids apply the math. I call it applied algebra 2 is what it is. So they're learning these skills and they get after this thing. They do it in such a way that it is pretty outstanding on how they come to their problem-based learning. And everyone has a piece of this, and they all have roles. That's how it works.
Okay,
I mean, that's where I totally disagree with you. I've got kids around with 3 kids. I've got one that would be the person who totally takes over, and I've got one that would sit there and do absolutely nothing and let someone else take over and learn nothing. So I don't think we can put a blanket statement like, oh, that's not true. 100% you're going to have kids that are going to skate in every kind of way.
Okay, I
And not.
understand what you're saying, but I'm saying that the days of whenever we would get into groups and kids are not responsible to some role is not completely true. And yeah, it takes some time to get there.
So, Mr. Hall, let me ask you this question. If a group of 8 students, what are the groups typically?
In a quantitative reason, it could be anywhere from 3 to 5 kids in
Okay,
a
so
group.
3 to 5 kids. And so, excuse me, let me turn that off. So if you have 3 to 5 students and each one has a different task, does that mean then that people are not learning each of the different tasks, or does each one do a different task each time so that each of them does each of the tasks?
The goal of the group is to solve the problem that's in front of them. So when they have roles, like one of them may have a role as a timekeeper, they may have a role as a resource management person, they may have a role as, for lack of a better word, like a task manager, or somebody who is going to take notes, but they all have a piece in this. That was the same kids that presented the night that we did our presentation to you for the board. That was an example of what they do. And it gives them a lot of skill, a lot of practice on skills where you're working in collaborative groups to solve problems.
So let me ask this question. What do we know about the testing of information with this kind of a program compared to traditional classroom?
I don't understand what you
So let's say this program and there's testing of whatever the subject matter is. Has that been done, and has it been compared with traditional classroom norms of testing?
Well,
so that we know that they're learning better, the same, or not as well.
It's an Algebra 2 competency or equivalency class, and we have 3 of them here. And this is a way to help our kids graduate who are not necessarily going a collegiate
Okay,
route.
so that's the crux.
Yes.
We're trying to help kids that are behind move up the ladder.
Not necessarily.
No,
Not
No,
necessarily.
I think in terms of a norm and a standards-based testing, personalized learning and the research that's out there has shown that it actually has better gains than a traditional standard-based.
Can you give us that information?
We can look for some of that, yeah.
I'd like to read it.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is, I was the curriculum chair before, and I had read some studies where some testing results had been done and claimed to be great, but they were the company's own testing results. And they juiced the numbers the way they wanted to sell a program. And so I'm curious about that,
Yeah.
especially since this is a newer program.
This is not, and I guess this is not a program, and I think that's this is a new way of delivering instruction. So it's not, we're not bringing in a curriculum, we're not bringing in a program, we're not bringing in anything. We are taking our teachers and having our teachers work collaboratively with our students to make sure that they learn, they meet these targets that are set across by the state. It's actually from the Ohio Personalized Learning Program is the model that we're using to follow through. And it really does it's an opportunity for our students to gauge and to show their mastery. And for some of our students, it's the way they learn best. It's not for all of our students, and we know that. And there are students who, it's not, I think when presented, one of the things we failed when we presented this to our students is that you have to. Obviously there's an opt-out. If parents don't want to be a part of this, or their students really say, this is not for me, I want to do traditional-based learning, by all means, we do have the opt-out. We do still have the English issue that's there, So we would provide alternate ways to, because that's a big concern, less than,
So how have we communicated that? Because my child's a junior and I've gotten zero communication that there's an opt-out.
and that's, like as we presented it, that was the
Well, right,
the big
because
issue.
just so everyone's aware, this was presented to our students before any of us knew anything about it. The only reason I knew about it was because my kid's a junior. Otherwise, we were.
Did he tell you, or did you see it? in the email?
Well, we got an email after the fact.
Okay.
He told me there was a meeting about Auburn, and I was like, okay, cool, go to the meeting, make sure you tell me about it. And he brought home a piece of paper that said, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, this, to me, is so super problematic. And I'd asked Dan McIntyre to be with us too, because the opt-out was not communicated to the kids, and there was legal issues with not allowing our students, especially if you've got kids on IEPs, to have other options.
Right,
So-
yeah, you get into that arena, certainly.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the block schedule, because you talked about maybe having a modified block schedule in the future here so that we can do enrichment and remediation because we're not hitting that on some levels. But also, this also kind of gives you the flexibility from what I can see. Because, we are shortchanging the kids if they can only really go to one block. They only take 3 courses, not 4. There are advantages here. And not all kids need the same amount of time to learn something. Some need more, some need less, but, they work at their own pace. They're only competing against themselves. And I like the fact that it's not like many years ago when they had mastery learning, threw you on a computer, you understand that, go on to the next thing. Very impersonal. This sounds like you actually have some very knowledgeable people that really know their craft being involved in this program that would lend itself to, I think, success. But because it's a pilot program, you don't know until you go through it. But I do see some advantages on several levels. And the kids will tell you whether they like it or not, probably within the first month. They'll tell you.
But the problem is, we also have students
You've-
that come
you've
in and
committed.
it's highly unsuccessful for that kid, then what?
Yeah.
Because
Well-
I can tell you, I'm gonna just be honest, I'm gonna opt out my kid immediately. There's no chance that my kid can sit in a room with 114 kids and have any chance of doing well. And he and I have talked about it, he even said too, he's like, there's no part of him that wants, and he said he's talked to all of his friends who are going to Auburn, none of them want to do this, and sit in a room in the media center all day long with the same group of kids all day long, not have the opportunity to be with their peers, doing those things. There's no chance I'm going to sign my child up for this. Especially that we haven't really communicated to our families that there are other options. My kids have all gone through Auburn. I understand the English issue. My daughter did CCP while being at Auburn, even when our guidance counselors told me it wasn't possible. It totally was. We may have to get more creative with our guidance counselors with scheduling kids, but the thought of 114 or up to 127 children sitting in this room all day long and being expected to concentrate, to not be given a normal space to learn. Some kids really need a classroom where there's not 4 other classes essentially going on, other things like that. I think we've done a very poor job communicating this. Our families definitely don't understand what their kids have just been signed up for. And we didn't tell parents also in advance that if you sign up for Auburn, hey, guess what? You're not going to be in traditional classes any longer. Now you're going to be doing something else. Our kids did not know that in advance, and that very much should have been communicated well before our kids committed to this. And this is messy.
Is there any thought of partitions so that one table can't be interrupting another? So I'm kind of laying out the room right now, and that's a lot of tables.
It's not just in this room, though. There's up to 3 classrooms besides this room that we can be using. So we have 2 upstairs. We have Miss Lucas's room, which is right here off of the media center, and then we have this space. Kids aren't necessarily in here all day either. Depending on what, let's say your son's schedule, say he signed up for an honors algebra 2 class. He's going to be in an honors algebra 2 class. That means he's going to be in Dirk's class. So he would go there during 4th block. So they're not here, it's not like we're saying, hey, no school for you. And it is traditional classes. These are not traditional classes. These are full credited classes.
Well, I get that they're fully credited, but you're also talking about kids learning in groups and not sitting in a dedicated English class with
Not necessarily.
24.
But I'm saying not necessarily.
So can I ask a question about the kids who are gonna take art or band or whatever? Like, I know that whole band issue and whatever, and they used to be that they were not allowed to participate in marching band. I think we fixed that. But, so they're gonna go, and they're gonna go out to band, well, they're supposed to be in these 4 classes. So they're actually gonna have less instruction in these 4 core classes than they would have, because now they're taking some of that time and sucking it out and going to band and art or whatever, like, so that they can actually take these classes, because I know those are offered in the afternoon because of CCP students and senior Auburn students who can come back, and like band is always, those classes for those students are always scheduled at the end of the day. So how do they work that? I want to take shop, right, like, or whatever, I want to come back and I want
So
to do X, Y, Z.
So that depends on the student. And again, it's is the student being successful mastering the content in the 4 cores? Because obviously that's the most important part. But if we start to see those mastery schedules that are there, then the opportunity to go to band, the opportunity to go to review, working with Mr. Schwartz, Mr. Roderfeld, to make sure that those things are available, that they can kind of get to them as well, is something that does lend itself and open itself up to it. Because these students, you'll want that as well. You can sign up for Auburn, and all of a sudden you're also signing they can't do anything else other than Auburn. And I think it provides an opportunity for those to be options to them the same way. The other thing about we are buying, and there are being some dividers that are up in there to get to your point. The library right now is not going to look the same as it does when those students come, for the academy. They're definitely working hard for that. They're not all going to just be sitting here all willy-nilly, I'm going to take these kids. There is structure to it. They're working through what the structure looks like and blocking it almost into 20-minute increments and mods, and kind of giving kids daily kind of calendars and schedules. And this is where you go based on what you've learned and mastered. So it's not just where I would go to Gary and say, hey, how you doing today? This is where you're great. It's also today you're coming to this. This is your schedule for the day, because you need, and you show that you need to do these sorts of things. And those things aren't negotiable. Yes, we say kids can do kind of whatever. There are some things. It's just like when you select your job. There are some things you can do. You can do your own way, but you still have to get the job done. You still have to show competency on the task. This personalized learning takes that same approach. That it's product based, and are you definitely learning it? But then you're also showing how you get to that product. You do have some choice and some voice into how you get to it, but you still have to come up with whatever this end product is, and that's the key concept behind this. Is it's not, again, it's we're not just sitting everybody here. It's for the first 20 minutes are the check-ins and hey, here's your schedule and all that, and the next 20 minutes, for the next 40 minutes. Our chemistry teacher might be taking this group of students who need to do this chemistry lab up to the chemistry room and take them out, and then they're going to work on that lab and get that mastery, because that's a key competency, and they have to show that it's there, and then they're going to come back down. And personal finance might be working on something, and the other part too is once you come in, you're not stuck. Our teachers understand the need for kids to kind of move around. That's just as important for our adults as it is for our students. We know that there's going to be breaks built in, as there is in any single day. They're not just kind of coming here for the entire time. It's using that time that they have in the school most efficiently and putting them to work kind of all that are there, and making sure that they meet those criteria and they kind of move on, and then have the opportunity to do some other things. And Mrs. Hart, I agree with you with the fact that Auburn students should be able to take CCP classes, and we have some who are signed up for it. And that's phenomenal. If those options are there for them, they can be there. If they want to take a CCP English or a CCP Math, which is great, and they take it online, we have people who can actually assist them within the class when they have questions. And one of the issues that my own daughter had with some of those CCPs, where do I go for help? Well, this provides that tutoring for them right there at that point. So it's a different way of delivering the curriculum that is a little bit non-traditional, and it does meet the needs of a number of our students. It may not be all of them, and we know that. There may be some who need to go into a class, and we'll find ways for them to get the full English, and we could look at, we have online opportunities where they can take an online government and an online personal finance and meet those requirements within the study hall blocks that are there and the shortened blocks that are there, and give them English and the math that they sign up for those 4 blocks. That's a possibility too for our kids.
Yeah, I'm really sensitive to the student that is not grasping it or falling behind or completely disinterested. So what I'm hearing is the measurement's going to be lagging, and so what happens? at what point do we take a student that's struggling there and just really is not going to learn that way and move them into a different arena so they can be successful? Or possibly a student that's totally disinterested for whatever reason. And then when will that be caught, and when will that person be re-injected into an environment that might be more successful?
I think in this environment, it would be quicker than a traditional classroom environment. I think in a traditional classroom, you're in there, if you're disinterested, what do we see? We see non-work completion, we see refusal, we see low test scores, we see all that, and we just say, oh, that's whoever that student is.
But what would that timing be? Are there time frames when people, the advisors are measuring, the teachers are measuring each of the students? And then is there a point in time where you're too far into a class to where now it's difficult to move that person into a different environment and they're behind and there's no way for them to be successful? What is the actual measurement? Is there a time frame? Is there number of days into the class where someone decides, hey, this student's doing well enough or doing well or great, or this student really needs to be moved into a different environment? Because there's going to come a point in time when you're too far down the road where you're not going to be able to make an adjustment where that student has a chance to learn what they need to learn.
So there's plenty of times when people are in traditional classrooms and they don't have enough time to make things up, because we have many times feedback is not given till the day before grades are due.
Well, I think
How is that,
I-
like, that's no different, let's
Yeah.
face it, at the end of the day.
I would fully agree. I think in this environment, with the people who are selected to work with this group of people, they're going to make sure that those students don't fail. And I feel confident in saying that, because they are actually true advocates for students and believe in this, and they believe in this program. They want to see the success of it, so they're working extremely hard to make sure that it is successful for all of those students, and that they think through, well, what happens when so-and-so doesn't have that? And when you look at kind of who we have, picked for this academy, it's not, we just didn't assign 4 teachers to it. We went, we asked, we kind of said, what were your thoughts? We allowed them, they worked together to kind of come up with these ideas and how they're going to piggyback off one another to make sure that they are successful and that students are successful. And they ask great questions, some of the same questions you asked. What happens with this? And all of a sudden our intervention specialists accept, well, I'm doing this, so I can kind of help with that, as to bring them up and kind of provide them that instruction as they need. So they've put it in their minds that, that success is the only option, and they see these kids absolutely truly being successful along the way as they go, and to make sure that they are engaged. I think the one thing that would cause a student to derail and become off wheels is, off track. It's the same thing that would happen to any student anywhere else, extended absences. That's an issue that we have to deal with even now currently in a traditional classroom. If you miss a 90-minute block, and then you come back the next day, you don't have that class, and you come back the night, you're trying to catch up. It's a gap. This way, at least they are seeing and delivering content or some sort of content, almost every day, if not every day, depending on where they are with the schedule and kind of everything
Can
else.
there be a written timeline where there are assessments? Because I'm hearing abstract. They all want to make it work. It's going to work. We have great people. Okay. Do we have anything that's structured that says, okay, in this time frame, if a student's not doing well in this time frame, we have to find another place for them, and here's the measurement. Can't get past this many days. Because right now it's abstract what I'm hearing.
I think that's something we can definitely look into, because I would agree. I mean, I think what I'm hearing you say is it does need to be a partnership. Because I think after students come in for a couple of days, if they decide, and some of our students are well enough to know that this isn't for me, and they kind of don't. And some are just like, well, this is non-traditional, it's a change, and there's a difference between a change and not being for me, and I think that's a difference.
What if this
So-
really doesn't work for, let's say, maybe there's 35 kids, and we've put ourselves in a position that we don't have a teacher available, we don't have a classroom available, because we've kind of stuck ourselves in a corner now that we've just assumed everyone's going to be content in here, and now it's really not working, and we don't have space for them, we don't have teachers, and now what are we going to do?
There's sections of traditional classes built into the schedule in the afternoon. So if we needed to make a change, we'd be able to make those changes. So I'm saying, like, there's a government class in the afternoon for our kids that are coming back. There's a chemistry class in the afternoon.
Right, but there's.
But you can't put
sure.
35 kids in
You
it.
can't all of a sudden have a whole, if you've had a very large group of kids, you realize this is really not for me because this is not proven. I mean, this is the first we ever heard of it, so I don't know if you guys have spent an entire school year researching this, or this just started 6 weeks ago. I've got no idea what kind of,
We've been a part of the personalized learning cohort.
I'm talking about
for
this particular.
2 years. This
That's-
is the next step in that cohort.
okay, but that's, so do we know have any other program that's, any other school district that's done something like this, where they put 100+ kids in a room and done?
So, yes, we do. Shaker Heights does it, Mayfield does it, Talmadge does it, Twinsburg is doing it next year. Willow Eastlake is moving towards some sort of program like that. And the one that's been
With all their
established the
vocational
most-
students?
They're doing it with different levels. Mayfield started with their seniors and then moved down, and now they have it through their high school, through freshmen, through seniors, and it's an option where they can learn in this way.
This is more like Montessori-based education in
Not-
some ways.
no,
I mean, it
it's-
is and it's
no,
not.
it's
It's
not.
like your master's subject, you can move on to the next, they don't have grade bands, like, I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying change is bad. Change is inevitable. And I guess people have to get comfortable with change, and I get all that. But I feel like change has to be proven with smaller groups, like, right, I'm all about, like, well, what are the metrics that we're gonna do? Are they gonna take a test every month or whatever? Are they gonna, like, what is that measurement
Our
gonna
departments have common assessments throughout the year. We can definitely take.
be? I'm
and I
just
would-
curious, I mean, there's gotta be something that says, hey, these kids are not doing,
It's the same
Poorly.
coursework, it's just delivered in a different fashion. That's-
But to your point, we're taking a very large group of kids and just saying, you're part of a pilot program, good luck in your junior year.
and then you're, like, I'm hearing you say, well, the chemistry teacher needs to take them up to the chemistry lab because they're gonna work on something or they're gonna present these small groups. What happens when, 15 of those kids are in band and they're going to do this lab work? Like, how is all that gonna work out when you have kids who are gonna go then take those non-traditional things that are not in that 4 blocks of coursework? Are they gonna repeat those lessons again? Are they gonna be repetitive? Is that teacher gonna have to do it 4
It
times?
would be no
Because-
different
do you know
than a
what I
kid
mean?
who's out sick. They'd have to make that up. They would work things out. I mean, things come up every day where it's not an ideal.
I mean, I understand that, but these kids are, I don't remember how old these kids are, 16, 17 years old. I mean, I have really smart kids, but they would be like,
Well,
I
and
can
these-
skate.
the one unique thing about
I just,
these students and having a student who's just gone through it, they're well enough and mature enough and self-aware enough to know kind of the skill set that they want to gain for the rest of their lives, right? I can see.
I don't
agree with that.
Well, I mean, they know at least a quarter that they want to start, to
Are you
gain a
saying a
skill.
16-year-old knows what they want to do for the rest of their
Oh, no, I'm saying I don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life.
I don't
I'm
think,
saying
I
they know
don't
the
think,
program
I
skills
don't
that they
think
want to get
16-year-olds
into.
are self-aware. I think they are like, okay, if I can get away with something, I'm
Absolutely.
so gonna, because
So are
I'm
adults
16.
now.
What's that?
So are adults.
Well, again,
Yes, but
exactly,
these
so
are
we're adults,
16-year-olds
and we're
and we should be
adults,
giving-
but we're asking 16-year-olds to be able to have
To
that
act like-
concept of self-awareness to the fact that they're actually gonna do something about it, when I know adults in my own office that can't do that, like,
But we have examples of sophomores who do this in the English classes that we
But then this
offer.
should have been a choice to begin with.
We
I
have-
think those are
This
the
is-
exceptions rather
I
than the rule.
100% agree with that.
I disagree with that. I think the way that we have students who are doing it in 3rd grade, our 3rd graders are doing it, and they're choosing their paths, and we see good results in those. We're seeing it.
Then
in
how
our-
come,
in our
then let me
algebra
ask you
students.
something, and I'm not trying to be argumentative here, but like, then why don't we do this with our advanced students? And we
Our
always
highest
said, our,
performers.
we cut that program way back when, right? I remember we cut that program, we cut it, the 4th grade honors program, because, well, we can't group kids and we can't afford it, whatever. And we don't do that with those advanced kids, and we let them not meet AYP every single year because they can't, because they sit in a traditional classroom and they languish. That is my kid, and oh my God, and I feel so bad because we subjected, and he's now an adult, like, to that, and they don't advance, and they've learned that, and it's been ingrained, and they can't meet adequate progress because, and we said it was okay.
Yeah, one
Did you know what I
thing
mean? Like, we
I know.
don't do anything for our gifted students, so why aren't we doing it with them?
They would be the target group for
Right,
something
they would
like
be
this
they
first.
would somebody that I would look at to do that first because they have
they work differently. That's just my,
So to that point, I've been thinking about this, might be a good time to ask this question. If there's a student mastering the curriculum, the subject matter, once they've mastered it, and they're only two-thirds way through the class, the time frame, what then do you do with that student?
That's whenever we have some flexibility, we can start looking at internships, we can start looking at partnerships, getting them out, doing on job sites, what they want to do for their vocations.
So we're looking at more collaboration
Yes.
with outside businesses and that
Yes.
sort of thing.
And to your point, I'd love to have an early college academy. I would love to have something like that here, but that would mean that we would have to embrace some of these things that we're talking about right now with our Auburn juniors who already have a need. We're not delivering English instruction. We haven't been doing that responsibly for years. That's a problem.
I would agree.
You
Like,
know,
I'm
so
not disagreeing with that
so we're
statement.
trying to figure out a way to deliver that and deliver more instruction to them with some of our best. That's the bottom line.
So what are we doing for all the rest of our staff that needs to get up to that part of instruction? What do we do with rigor? Because we've talked about rigor,
So,
like and the
We
lack
need a place
of.
to start, and we need to know, to say that this is going to be flawless, I can't sit up here and say there's not going to be problems. There's not going to be problems all the way. There's not going to be bumps in the road. There are bumps in the road with any type of, as you start to scale things up. We know that it works well because our individual classrooms that have embraced it, we've seen it work well, and we've seen it work well at different levels, we've seen it work well at different scales. Now, to do something at scale and a little bit larger, yes, we know there's going to be some bumps in the road along the way. We need to address those. We don't have the answers, so we don't necessarily know what the problems are. We're anticipating some of the issues coming up. We don't have all of them. But once we scale this up and have this scale and kind of address the issues that come up, then we can go to, okay, how do we scale for larger, and where do we do the issues where? I agree totally. It should be for our highest students. It should be for our lowest. It should be for whatever student learns best that way. It's not for all students, but we should definitely provide students an opportunity to have that and to kind of fill into it and to get that's there and to see what the actual desire is for them, because you can learn subjects in different ways, and it can, and in an ideal world like an early college academy or something, it can also be subject specific, and it can even be subject specific as we move through and develop and kind of learn what it is. Auburn presents an issue because of the limited bell schedule that's there, but if we know that if there's a student who, I really learn math better in this setting, but I learn English better like this, and some of our students can tell us that. That's the biggest part to do the work ahead of time. It's not just this is what we're doing to you. It's I need to know the students who are in front of me, and that learner profile is such key, because if you don't know if you don't know the audience, then the message is going to fail. And that's the biggest part. And I think part of the issue with where we came around with this as we started to develop it is the way we delivered it, we failed with. And I think we can come across and say that's the way that we presented it, the way that we kind of came across, we know we need to do a better job with it, because it's something that we know that it's the right thing for our students. We know that it is truly what's in the best interest of the majority of our students. Now, it doesn't fit all, but typical school doesn't fit all. But then that's the next step, is it's going to catch more, and it's going to kind of benefit to more who are there. And I think to the question, like, what happens when the job is done? I move on to the next job, or I look for something else to do, or maybe, the job's never done. There's more opportunities to get there, but there's the baseline that's there. And this is a way to get to that baseline and then move to the next steps. And it truly is it's a different method of meeting our individual students' needs to kind of collectively hit to them. And I think that's to the point where it really truly does make an impact for our kids along the way, and it's going to impact the majority of those students. And you know what? If there are students who opt out or they're not meeting it, and we're seeing those lower scores, we're not afraid to pivot. We have people in that classroom who are willing to pivot and kind of take those. They're there because we ask them to pivot, but they'll pivot. They understand how this works, and they get what it means.
I think that we need to take the opportunity to catch that student who's not doing as well, or maybe we failed them more in the past, where this may be an opportunity to help them more. I think we need to identify it earlier on in the process of the class, so that we can give them other options where we might find a different situation or environment where they could have some success, or at least as much success as they can have, okay? And so I think that we need to have a measurement, and it can't get too far along to where once that measurement is done, now what do we do, and where does that student go, and can they actually be successful in anything that you're offering at that time? Because once enough time goes by, you're not going to be able to do anything. I think the measurement needs to be in a shorter time frame, if there's a way to do that, so that we can adjust for certain students that would be better in a different environment, help them be successful, even if it's at a minimum level of success. If they're going to fail otherwise, we at least need to do everything we can to get them to the minimum level of success so they can move on. Okay, so that's my concern. How far will we go through this before we identify those students? And then what can we do to adjust to better serve those students?
I'll tell you, and I hear your concerns. One thing that I'm going to say that makes this a little bit different already right from the start, our current schedule, we meet with kids every other day. And some days we meet with them just twice a week, some days 3 days a week.
Now, when you say we,
I'm talking about our teachers, our whole building staff, the way Black and Gold is set up with our block schedule. This setup, there's the ability to meet with them every day. Right? And how we divide up that time could be similar to what we do with Black and Gold, meaning like this could be a math concentration day and an English concentration day, where they're actually going to get 2 hours worth of instruction in that time period. They're not getting that right now, right? And that means that they're going to have those touches with those teachers, the things you're talking about, more intimate, more genuine, not in a IC framework where you're taking a look at what's on a computer screen. This is more mentoring and more teaching along with it.
okay, so what you're saying is there's more opportunity for success because there's more
I believe
attention
so.
paid to each of the individual students.
I believe so.
So let's accept that and take that. Now, what do we do? So we're going to be offering a better opportunity for success for the students as a whole. So let's say we're going to go from a 78% level of success to an 83 level or 82, 83, 84 level of success. So we will be making an improvement. Then my question still remains, what do we do for that marginal or one that's falling a little bit below the line?
Well, we do
That might
have,
not make it in this program.
we do have an IS here that is part of this team. And there are other supports that we can use through our tutors, through our programming. I'm not a huge fan of online necessarily, but there are some online services.
So
and
question
platforms
on the
that we can
IS, at what point would it be identified someone needs that individual instruction?
Well, that would come from the team who meets every day to talk about our kids.
Okay, so someone has to make an
Yes.
assessment. Now, is that assessment written on an ongoing basis, or is it a subjective assessment?
That's a good question, because it could be both. It could be based on,
Is there something in this program for a written
I
assessment?
can't tell you that
intervals?
there's something that I can pull out and give it to you right now, but are there documents that we create, are there pieces and parts that we can have for those concerns? Absolutely.
I mean, that's what I would like to see. I'm always looking at the person that's at the bottom. How do we help those people at least have a minimum level of success when they might not otherwise?
I understand, yeah.
And what I'm hearing a lot of is that, you know, we're talking about the logistics, and one of them has to do, you know, how do we make sure we have a safety net for these kids who might not be clicking with this program? And what is the time period of which we're going to assess that? Obviously, you have some very, I'm looking at teachers who are pretty mastered in their craft to be able to make some identification that way. There's also a lot, it seems like a lot more communication, not talking at kids, but engaging them. But I also think that it affords the opportunity for kids to take ownership of what they're doing, and a lot of the kids today, they don't see it as relevant unless they're producing something. And so they have choices about how they show their mastery. And I think that there's a lot of pluses in that. I had taught gifted at one point, and the highest level of learning was that they ended up with a product, something that shows that mastery. It isn't just, okay, I know 2 + 2 is 4. What are you going to do with that? You know, how can you make that work into something, you know, I'm just giving a simplistic example. You know, I've seen it at the elementary level in terms of guided reading where they might have a mini lesson, then they break out, they have some groups, they're doing different things. There's a lot of power in collaborative learning where they learn from each other. But it's all, you know, like prepped by the teacher.
Facilitated, yep.
So I see a lot of advantages. Is it for every single student? It may not be, but if things haven't been working for a student before, this is another opportunity to make it work.
And if we have the opportunity to improve the educational, not the experience, but the educational outcome. So if we're successful 77% of the time and we can get to 82% of the time, then that would be an improvement. And so where I'm coming from is we need to catch the failures, if you will, early enough to change direction so maybe that child can fit in a channel where they can learn, because everyone learns a little differently. And if you're in groups, my main concern is when you're in groups, a person can fall through the cracks a little bit more easily than on individual instruction. And I understand groups sometimes can be better, and it's all how you teach and all of that sort of thing. But we certainly need to measure and pay attention to each individual, because we don't want someone to fall through the cracks. If we can save 3 kids out of 100 kids from failing to having some level of success and at least graduating, that's where I'm moving here.
We want to save them all.
Well, we do,
You know,
okay,
I would
and
say
we know,
we want them all
and we
to
know
do
the
it.
environment,
Yes.
right? So you're not going to be able to do everything, but if we can make an improvement from what we're doing today to what we're moving to, 2, 3, 4, 5%, then it would be meaningful.
But on the flip side too, if we're gonna sell this as this is just so great, what to the parent then who says, well, why can't my kid be in this?
That's a good question.
We're
Because
not
it's a
giving an
pilot
equitable
program
option to every
that we're
student that's
trying
here.
to-
Well, and I would
Yeah.
agree with that. I wish
Yeah.
we needed a place to start, because the goal is next year to say, yes, come join us, and we would open it to even more.
But I
Because
think,
I
to that
think
point though, then why are we taking just the Auburn kids? If that's the goal, why did we, like,
we needed a place.
I understand that, but you're talking 1/3 of our student body of a graduating class, 100 and up to 27 kids is over 1/3 of that class of 2026 that's being put in this position of we've got no proof that this is gonna be good. It could be awesome, but now we've also told 2/3 of our kids, oh, here's this great program, but you didn't get to be on it because you didn't go to Auburn either. Like, it's so inequitable in so many different ways. Like, everything about this gives me such an ick. Like, it's just.
And it still doesn't change the diploma, right, this program, because of the other.
The only thing it opens up is it allows Auburn students to potentially earn the academic honors diploma, which they would not be able to earn.
Unless they took CCP.
Unless if they take CCP and go the CCP route and get it and do the CCP.
And why couldn't they do CCP as an Auburn
They
student?
can't.
Well, they can, but
Why
when
why
I was.
were we told they couldn't?
I was told that it didn't work in my daughter's schedule until I actually worked at a college and went into the admissions office. They said, of course it works in the schedule.
I mean, you could take anything you want anytime
They
you
could.
want.
Our
You could take it at
our
night.
guidance
I mean,
our
it doesn't
guidance
make a
department just
difference.
didn't look into it. They just said it won't work. And I brought the schedule to them and said, hey,
Well, and I think
it
both
does.
Mr. Hall and myself, we look for reasons to make things work and reasons for why they work, and not necessarily why they don't, why they're good. And I would agree. I would love to open it up for any junior who wants it. I would love to open it up for any senior who wants it. I think that's the vision moving forward. But I think we have to start somewhere to kind of work through some of the wrinkles. Why did we choose the Auburn students, which is 1/3? Because that's a manageable class. That's it's a manageable group that we can have. And we had a problem with the schedule where it wasn't equitable ahead of time, and we were just okay with it because it's always been that way. And it really isn't okay with it, because if you choose to go to Auburn, you're locked out of a lot of opportunities for our kids that we don't provide for others. And I think that's an issue where this is an opportunity to get some of those opportunities and still go to Auburn if you want. I think that for us was a big win and a big selling point. When we talked to the teachers who were involved in it, part of it is to throw it on and say, hey, we're going to do it with all juniors, for instance. That's a lot. And that's a huge group. But there's other classes that they can take as we scale it up, We want to offer every class in this option and have kind of those opportunities that are there, but we have to have a place to kind of start with and a place and then pilot, and this was the best way. What you'll notice is that the math classes, there's 2 options for math. So, are they going to take Algebra 2 because they want to go that route, or are they going to take quantitative reasoning?
But weren't there more options, math options? The kids were actually told earlier in the year what math they'd be taking already. So the math class that they were recommended for at the end of their sophomore year, that may not necessarily now hold true because they only had 2.
No, we
there
looked
were
at
like 4, weren't
the
there?
courses we looked at for the students who were going to Auburn. The Auburn students had Algebra 2 or quantitative reasoning.
There is
based
another
on-
one too.
Maybe discrete math?
Yes.
No, discrete.
Yeah, because that's one of the other Algebra 2 equivalents.
I know that, but now we're saying that class is not going to be available to them.
Well, I mean, it could possibly be available to them where they are flexing out to take that class.
See, but I guess this is my point. Like, I don't think that we've remotely thought about all these things. Like, because I know, like, my son, that's the class he was supposed to be in, was a discrete math class. So now you're saying that's no longer a math that's going to be taught in here.
But,
So
if
then
they're, but then if they're going to flex
like-
out and take that
then
class,
why would they-
what are they going to be missing when they're supposed to, like, what are they missing? Now they're missing something else that they were
Wouldn't be,
taking while
it
they were.
wouldn't be any
like-
different than if they were on the black and gold schedule traditionally. They're alternating those classes every other day as it is.
I just see, I mean, I'm coming in new to this, but, just by virtue of the fact that they can have 4 classes instead of 3, they were being shortchanged, and this gives many more opportunities. The other thing is that they're starting with a learner profiling, or profile, and the teachers are really going to be able to zero in, and the kids will understand how they learn. I gave a Myers-Briggs to my teachers for an orientation once, and they were surprised that they didn't even know that information.
that's
And
what
now
I mean.
it
Like,
makes
I think
sense
adults
why I
know.
get along with this person, because we click and we're a great teaching team, because they think alike. Why? They never knew the why.
I think the other thing, it depends on when classes are offered in a schedule. You can sign up for a class, but there are times when you can't take it because of other classes that are there and when they're offered and when they're run. based
Right,
on-
but we were told
on a
this year
whole
that their
number of
teachers
things.
were recommending them specifically for classes. That's what we were told as parents, that, hey, this is the class your child's teacher is telling them they should be in next year. Now we're saying, well, that's not necessarily true.
And then how are we gonna, if the goal is to eventually like move to this as a more normative. And
As an
again,
option.
As an option. And again, I'm not saying change is bad, because change is inevitable. Like, change happens all the
Sure.
time, and we have to get accustomed to it, and we're the first line of defense, and like, oh my God, this is so different, right? And I get that, but parents are gonna have that pushback as well, probably even more so than we are. How do we then move that to other staff that we have and get them the professional development they need? That's a biggie. I mean, like, some of our staff won't even like this method because they're not that person.
True, and so part of personalizing anything is the people who are involved, and some of our staff will never be a part of a personalized learning program, and they'll teach the traditional classes in the traditional ways, and we'll continue to offer that. I don't ever foresee a school that doesn't necessarily offer traditionalized programming. I do see a lot of our staff who are interested, who are starting to dip their toes in it. We have a lot more who are getting trained every year. We are continuing to offer trainings. We still have, as a district, we went through a training last year. We still have cohorts who ran the year before. We have cohorts who are running next year in personalized learning and to start to do it. Some of these people these teachers have had experience doing it and implemented it and kind of know the classroom kind of pitfalls along the way. So now they're ready for the next step, kind of the programmatic, where it is in taking it to the next level. I think the other, as we have other teachers who are starting to do the classroom, and they're starting to talk about kind of, hey, I tried this and it worked, and there's some of that. There's absolutely some camaraderie between our teachers who talk about our continued professional development does focus on personalized learning. I think you've heard a lot of conversations. This is what we did in this professional development, personalized learning, and we're challenged. Just try it. Give it and kind of give us your pluses and minuses, and let's work through it. Because as they continue to do it, they continue to see the success, and the students continue to see the success. And not only do they like it, but the scores are becoming to improve. We're starting to see some things go wrong in terms of learning targets and how we're measuring. And it's, the more you do it, the better and the more success you're going to see along the way. And it is, part of it too, is learning how to know what you know and what you don't know, and learning how to know what a group of students knows and what they don't know, and use that quickly. And that's a skill to kind of move along the way and continue to develop. And I think that our teachers are getting those tools in their hands to kind of get that forward and kind of and to step forward along the way. And I think those are things that we really can celebrate throughout the year that are our wins. And I think that's the what this is the next step in that. But it's not, never once is this going to be a carte blanche, do what you want, come in and sit down and let's talk. And there's going to be academic rigors, and it's going to look, it's going to continue to evolve, because you're right, change is inevitable. The way that we teach, the way we instruct, we do it in our classes. This is a little bit bigger schedule, but it's still going to continue that way. Some of our students who choose CCP because they like the flexibility of those asynchronous mastery-based courses. They struggle with some of that because they don't necessarily get the supports they need. This provides those supports to them at the level that they need along the way, and then to help them with those asynchronous courses as they go. Some will be asynchronous, some will be synchronous, some will kind of be together as we did. Some will be, if I did something and I found out that a group of 5 students didn't quite get this, I can take those 5 students the very next day and say, hey, you didn't get this, here's the common thing, and in 10 minutes really kind of fix it, where in a traditional black gold schedule, it's the very next, it's 2 days from now, and it's also, okay, I substitute someone with the rest of this class who doesn't have other tasks, they're out doing something else. I can now work with these and intervene quicker, and the quicker I kind of give you that feedback and let you know, the more, the quicker you're going to kind of grow and gaining, not necessarily going to be practicing bad habits. And I think that's part of the key to this as well.
Here's a question, it's an abstract question. So you have teachers that want to engage and teach a new way, if you will, learn new things. Part of the information out there as to why we're losing more teachers is because so much is being piled on their plates, learning new things constantly over and over again each year. And now we're in a situation where we don't have as many teachers as what we really need globally, United States. And so as we do more changes and require more interaction, action, and involvement from the teachers to learn new things, are we going to lose more instructors because we're asking them to do more? Are there going to be some that say, look, I just don't want to do that, so I'll teach traditional classes, and you say, fine, we'll slot you in traditional classes? How are you going to handle that?
So I think we're going to have, I don't think we're going to lose teachers. I think we're going to actually keep them, if not retain them, if not gain more, because we're providing them more agency, more autonomy, and more choice. I think that's a big thing. I think when you read the research on why we're losing teachers, it's not necessarily the teaching methodologies and all that. Our teachers love that sort of things. It's the other red tape and bureaucratic things that kind of fall on them that they absolutely have to do, that we have tried to keep from going on. But there are some things that they just absolutely have to do, and that's where we start to lose them. But it's not in this sort of new way of approaching and teaching. I mean, when you look at kind of where they become coaches, and a lot of our teachers when they're young, they join coaching. They're in it because they want to do that. They love it. And you really are become a learning coach and work with students and coach them to become masters of what they are. When you coach kids, I don't coach every single kid the exact same way. We don't always, there are some things we do at the same time. There are some of those basic fundamentals that we always do, but then I specify, and I work with my top athlete a lot different than I work with the one who, hey, I need that student, I need that athlete to kind of continue to get better, but they don't necessarily have the same skills, so I approach it in different ways. And I think our best coaches know that, and our best teachers have learned the exact same thing. This takes that, and it takes that kind of methodology of kind of working with the practice, especially when it puts it in the classroom, it really kind of takes it to that next level. And so it is really about kind of how are we specializing. Yes, there's some foundations and some fundamentals that everybody has to go to, and you always go back to those. But then it's how do I extend, and how do I kind of, again, to keep someone from failing. The whole thing in coaching, the team thing, you're always as strong as your weakest link. And we know that, but it's, and sometimes in a traditional classroom, we just let that weak link just sit there. But in a coaching athletic field, we know we got to get that person, guy has to make gains as much as our top, and we have to treat them in different ways. And that's what our teachers, we're giving them the autonomy and the flexibility to do in this model, is to work with those students in different ways and to continue to drive them and to provide them what they need to be successful in the way so that every single student has success.
So I play a lot of sports, and the only alteration to that I would say is on a sports team, everyone's working towards the same goal, and the person that's on the team that has the lowest level of competency is still part of a team in a certain way, working towards that success. In a classroom, it can be a little bit different. There may be a student that's impossible to teach, okay, and that happens. And for whatever the reasons, we're not going to go into that now, right? But what we're talking about is how can we improve another 3, 4, 5, 6, 7% of our education, reaching 3, 4, 5, 6, 7% more students so that they don't fall through the cracks. Okay, there's always going to be kids, no matter what we do, we can't help them for whatever the reason. Okay, but we can expand the kids that we are reaching and helping to have a better educational experience, and at the lowest level, at least graduating, right? So that's what I'm talking about. Are we going to have an improvement of a few percent? We don't know what that percent is until you measure it, but every student's different, every teacher's different. When I was in school, I had teachers that were ready to check out. They had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years to go, and they just weren't. They were on autopilot. Okay, they would leave the classroom, put something on the board, leave the classroom, come back at the end of the class and say, okay, there's the bell, you're moving on to your next class. They weren't doing anything. Okay, so there are teachers at different parts of their career, for whatever the reasons may be, okay, that are not going to be wanting to be fully engaged in this type of system, if you will. And the ideal would be that every teacher in the system would want to be involved, but let's face it, that's not going to happen, and we all know that. So my question is, how do you handle that when I know that this is kind of a pilot, but you already mentioned growing that in and having it more of a complete program. How are we going to handle the teachers that really have almost checked out and they have a few years to go, and they don't want to teach this way?
Well, I'm going to talk about a couple of things here. If you've ever heard of like wraparound approaches, and we used to call this in Stark County, used to call them care teams. Here they call everything MTSS, which is Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 interventions. Multi-tiered systems of support.
Thank you.
So yeah, we have tons of acronyms. So I know a few of them, so I'll throw them out there as we go. But when you have these wraparound systems, you have teams of teachers that are responsible for small groups of kids. It's like, and in this place, what we have to do is we have to create small school environments in a big old school, because otherwise we're all on islands, and we do get some of that aspect of what you're talking about. So how do we want to develop this? One of the things I'll tell you is many of the strategies that we have learned and we've been a part of with cohorts for personalized learning, our teachers are already doing. They just don't know that they're doing it, all right, or they're not necessarily aware of it. So I've already talked about quantitative reasoning for a moment. You present a problem, you present resources, you present a goal as to what you want to do. And then when you give the kids in those groups that opportunity to work, those teachers aren't walking out of the room. They're not sitting at their desks. They're not doing any of that. They are moving from group to group to group, and they are listening to those conversations. They are facilitating where it's going, okay? And they are helping the kids come up with those answers. And those kids are also working with other groups. It's not unusual. And I've seen this happen. So this is a quantitative reasoning class, right? I go into a different math class. I see quads of kids. I see a row of desks, traditional. So we have kids that are working in groups. We have kids that have a choice to sit solo. But every one of those kids that's sitting solo is working in a group. They just think they're not. They're all talking to each other about what's happening. And these are good conversations. They're very rich. So these kind of things are happening already. The wraparound system with what we have with this group of teachers, that's exactly what this is. And one of my goals as the principal of this building is to have that wraparound system with all grade levels. So to have small groups of teachers that are responsible for a number of our kids.
How do you measure the amount of learning per student?
You measure the learning just like you do in any class. It could be testing. It could be based on a presentation. It could be based on a problem that is solved.
Okay, so a question, if you have a pot of five students and there's a presentation, do they all get the same grade for the presentation?
they are all responsible for pieces of the presentation. Now, how that is delved out, that's through a rubric. And based on what they do, that's what they're going to earn
kind of my
their score.
question. So
Yes.
each student is graded individually based on the perception of the teacher of their presentation.
And then there is a, well, not perception, but what they actually see, what's substantive.
Well, that's what I mean. So,
Yeah.
because it's not a black and white and red and yellow,
Yeah.
okay, because you're now abstract, because you have 5 students working on something, each one has a part, and then how do you grade that?
What we're trying to do is we're trying to fill in those gaps that you're talking about as we go. So kids get a test, let's say a traditional test, right? They don't do well on the test, so they get a retake of the test. Get a retake of the test, but what happens from the time that they've actually taken the first test and then do the retake? Everybody's moving on. So there's not a lot of gap filling that's going on there, which means that kids are kind of on their own to figure out there's something wrong with that. Wraparound system fits that where we start to fill in those gaps. And there's diagnostics we can use. There's a diagnostic called MAP that we can use that is nationally normed with schools across the country.
Right.
I can't even tell you how many use it. 'Cause
Yes,
it's in the
yeah,
hundreds
right.
of thousands.
Everyone's familiar with that.
Yeah, and there is a learning progression that we can use that helps us fill those gaps. But the wraparound system with this team of teachers that are responsible for that group of kids, that's very genuine and it's very intimate. So that is something that is missing in the traditional classroom because we're kind of in a rat race, and we miss a day of school. We get a snow day because it's going to happen. The last couple of winters have been, kind of mild, but we miss a day, and then that's a day that you lose, period. But in a block schedule style that we're in, that's 2 days. So when you do finally get back together again, now you're trying to cover up for 4 because they're on a learning continuum. They're trying to get kids ready for tests. There's a
I think
lot of
I
things.
understand what Scott's asking though, because it just harkens back to, hey, we have a group project due.
I think
3
it's
of
a-
us did all the work, 2
I think
people.
we're speaking in
Wait,
absolutes.
let me finish. One person didn't do anything at all, but they got up and, well, how about you present the cover page, because that's all you are
Right.
competent to be able to present, I get it. But they get the same grade as the rest of us who did 95 pages of work. And unless you tattle on the person who was in your group, you all got the same grade because there was no differentiation about like what you actually produced individually. But individually, I need to be, I'm going to be looked at as I'm competent and I've mastered.
And I ex-
I'm going to get it. It's problematic.
experienced
it happens,
that when I was in
yeah,
school.
It happens in college. It
Well,
happens in
I think
master's
you're
programs.
speaking
It
to
happens
problems
everywhere.
with traditional learning.
Well,
Because that happens in our classes today. And I think the other thing is there to be the absolute that all the assessments are based on group projects is just not the case.
it's not practical.
And it's not practical. It's not practical in this setting. It's not practical in a traditional classroom. That everything is a group project. Not everything is a group project. I think here, when you have these groups of students who are working together and really truly, that's how they know. You do have the opportunity for all those students to kind of show different levels of mastery, and there is more of that connection because they see them every day. So those touch points are there as well to kind of look and to model and to watch it. So I think you're still going to have that issue. You have that issue now, and you potentially have that issue even more now because kids know how to play the game. They're really good at playing the game and playing school, and this is a different model. So yes, it's a change for them, but it really is about kind of this is the outcome and this is the target, get to it. So when we talked about what the target is, the key, and one of the things I've said in the beginning of what is one of the competency-based personalized learning, it is this target. We are explicit with this is the target, this is the level, this is what the expectation is. Just like in a sport, the goal is to win. Here's the target, go get there. And kind of work to it and show you're going to get to it and show me demonstration that you met it. Here are some of the ways you can do it. Let's work to get to it to make sure that you do get it. And if you don't get it, we're not just going to say, hey, we're done, because there's something next. So we're going to get you back to it and take it the next day. But we have those issues. We have those issues in all of our classes, and that's there's a lot to be learned with cooperative learning, and that's the same in life too. I mean, even in the real world, there are people in careers who, we're going to put together something. I'm going to have you stand up and present with me because, but I'm doing all the work and you're just up here kind of reading off. You read these couple slides because they're little bit more, but I'll do the rest of it and kind of put it together and make sure we kind of, those are things that occur all the time. I think this is just, it's not going to exacerbate it, and it's not going to reduce the problem that's there. If that problem is still there, this presents us with an opportunity to get to know our kids a little bit better, really work through it, and also to really kind of still, again, catch those kids when they are slipping, because we found another way they kind of had
That's
to.
why I'm asking for a
That's
little-
it. It is how do we catch those kids early?
Yeah, earlier measurement, right? That's why I'm asking for an earlier measurement. And that we're full circle all the way back to that. How do you have an earlier measurement so we aren't losing kids, or at least now a student is identified as, okay, this isn't working well, but it's almost too late to introduce them into a different class. And so that's what I'm asking for. Can we have an earlier measurement? Because not everyone's going to make it. If we have 112 students, are 112 going to be successful in that program?
I'm going to try.
We're gonna try, right.
No,
Every
but
time
to
they
your
can.
point, Scott,
There's
someone
no
who's
point.
behind in here, then you put them in a classroom that's been working on something else for 3 weeks. The kid who's already struggling here is now going to come in and be
So
struggling.
where I'm going
somewhat.
is,
Yeah, I
it might
understand what
be,
you're saying.
if they work better in a black environment or a red environment, it's not working in the black environment, but they go to a red environment, or here, black and gold, go to the gold environment, and so a little bit of individual instruction, okay, might help them get caught up to where they have a better aptitude to learn in this environment. It's never perfect, but we want to do everything we can to help as many students as possible. The opportunity here, what I'm hearing and seeing is we have an opportunity to expand the percentage of students that can be successful in the program.
I think we will know quicker and with more reliability in a program like this than we would in a traditional classroom where they sit there and they just lecture for 90 minutes.
Then what do we do when someone is falling behind? That's what I'm saying. How early is the measurement to know?
That's a good question that we need to know for all of our students, not just our kids in this academy. And that's always been a problem, meaning like throughout the years. Because when we have like our system, the way our systems are set up where you're based on quarter grades, and you don't necessarily know exactly where a kid falls necessarily right away at that moment, especially if you get behind in things like grading, which shouldn't happen, but it does. It does happen sometimes. English teachers have to grade essays. It takes time to get through an essay. Okay, whereas a math teacher, as I graded my assignments daily, recorded them daily. My kids always knew where they stood. That's how it was. There's some issues there that we've got to work through. That's besides this academy. That's across the board. Period. You're just talking about identifying needs.
Look, getting better, right?
Yes.
If we can make a few percent improvement, then it helps more students, right? And it makes everything better. It makes the whole community better.
And the thing that I have found in my years as an educator is that is all built on how you build relationships with kids. Because when you are intentionally inviting and you make an effort to build relationships with kids, all kids, period, they all can learn. Even the ones you say that we might not be able to reach, I don't believe that. I've never felt that way. And those are kids that I taught. That's personal to me. I have a soft spot for our kids that are at risk. I'm just being honest. That's how it is. But we do what we can to build that relationship, because once you build that relationship, those kids know, and it sounds cliche, but they know you care about them, they know you really care. They are going to do whatever they can to try to be a good partner in that piece. And we've got a responsibility to try to fit that. Now, these things that that you talk about, like with groups and people didn't do work and they got credit for it, I'm not going to say that's never happened. It doesn't. I mean, it happens in some places. What I would ask you to do, I would invite all of you to come into the school. Come into school next year and go into some of our classrooms that have these collaborative environments going on and watch how our kids respond. They blow me away every time I go in there. I'm so happy with the efforts that they put in, and I'm so proud of them with what they do. It's really outstanding. Is it 100%? No. But I'm telling you, the principal of the building, I don't need to tell you because you're board members. Come on in. Come on in and be a part of it. See what it is for real. Because high school is not like what you used to believe it to be. It's not even what I believe it to be. It changes every 3 years. That's how it is. So come in and see what's going on with that. And be that person that's a partner in the process here to make it better. because there are going to be things that we're going to have to do better through this process. It's just how it is, though.
Yeah. So I've sat in on some classes, and they were more traditional. So I've not had the opportunity to sit in on this type of a class.
I think the key is feedback, and again, I will just.
Absolutely.
I'll just,
100%.
I'm just going to continue to just say that has always been an issue. It's always been an issue. The feedback hasn't been sufficient, it hasn't been timely. How do you improve if your feedback is so,
100%.
like, so
I agree.
unless we as a district are going to commit to holding those professionals responsible and accountable for the things that we need them to do and providing that feedback today, not 4 weeks from now, like today, because I think parents want to know what that feedback is. They go into Infinite Campus and they look for it, but it's not there. And unless we are going to hold them accountable to that, this doesn't work. So I have two other questions. I mean, that's just a statement from me as a parent who struggled with that. I mean, this has
And
been
that's
15 years.
That's one of the core principles of this personalized learning
Well,
is feedback.
And I'm going to
It
tell you.
doesn't, and I agree,
you,
it
Chris,
does not work.
You and I know both.
Yes.
That, like, we started with the DLT long ago. Like when you were
Absolutely.
the principal at Lamouth, and I sat in on those. And you want to know what? That was the core back then. The first thing we started talking about was feedback, appropriate feedback, and it's still a problem. So I don't know what to do with that. I don't have the answers to that. But that's holding staff accountable. Because once the staff can be accountable, the students will be they will respond to it appropriately. But we've got to have our professional levels we just have to hold them accountable to that. Anyway, so as long as we are giving people a choice on whether or not they participate in this,
Dan needs to be writing a letter for us. The fact that
Is
Dan
this-
wasn't involved with this to begin with, too.
Is this now, okay, if we're going to give people a choice, it's now like in the realm of it makes it more on the okay side than the not okay
Right.
side.
So the key principle for us is the equality of educational opportunities. And so that's measured in a lot of different ways. It can be measured on an individual student basis. It can be measured by groups. Chris and I had this conversation. It isn't a hard and fast set of rules. It's a general assessment of whether you're providing equal educational opportunities throughout your entire educational environment. An easy way to meet that legal standard is what Chris talked about with the opt-out approach. But there are other ways to meet that as well. And, hearing, the conversation tonight's been really helpful for me. And I was just reading about different school within a school type issues. And that's an analogous situation to this, because it's a smaller learning community within a larger school environment. They're not inherently troublesome or illegal. It's how it plays out within your school environment. For example, does it disproportionately affect students with disabilities? That would be a problem. We didn't intend to create a program like that, but if the net result is that students with disabilities are essentially segregated from the rest of the school community, well, then that's a problem. Does it disproportionately affect students of color? Well, then, while not an initial intent of the program, the effect of the program is potentially discriminatory. So, as a concept, smaller learning communities it's a perfectly legal, it's acceptable, it's very popular, it's endorsed by the DEW. I mean, it's all workable for us legally. The problem is that you don't know when you've crossed that line into something being illegal until you see it play out in your school. And so, well, it might create some issues for us. If we have that opt-out, we know right away that we're on the right side of the law. But again, that isn't the only way to meet that legal obligation.
And so the smaller learning communities is almost like going back to middle school teaming.
There's
In some
some
respects.
aspects of teaming to this. There's a lot that's based in some of that research where you have, everyone has kind of an advisor or a champion. It goes to some of that. There's also, there's a lot more about just those swap kind of hugs. Absolutely, it does kind of sink itself to that. I think to even Dan's point about the opt-out or the change, we've provided students opportunities to opt out during the regular school year. You sign up for Algebra 2, you go the first day, and you're like, whoa, this isn't for me. We don't force you to stay in Algebra 2 for the rest of the year. We kind of let you explore a little bit. We want you to dabble in it. And if you struggle, we do let you drop down to a class that maybe fits your needs a little bit better if we can catch you. I think this is a way we're going to catch those students who, you know, give it a chance. Come for the first day.
In all fairness, we have to be very clear with our families that they have the opportunity to opt out. Like, we did not, no communication that I've received as a parent of a kid that's supposed to go into this has ever said that was an option. So we have, and I want to make sure that Dan reviews whatever you're going to send out, that we have got to make it abundantly clear that this is not mandatory for any student, because that is not remotely what's been communicated yet.
And then to add to that, how far into, time-wise into the class can you opt out? That's part of what I'm talking about. We need to have
Right,
a
what's
measurement.
the point of no return?
Well, and with guidance counselors, with guidance
Well, and then
counselors who
also
don't
for
come
the
back
student where they won't be able to learn elsewhere.
Right.
But here's the other issue, our guidance counselors don't come back until what? How many days before school starts?
They come back on the first, I think. I think Scott will be back.
Scott's back for, I think they come back to 10, 5 to 10 days.
Okay, so now you've got people that need to recreate schedules and figure out what to do with Auburn students because we don't have guidance counselors here in this summer. If you've got families, so the point is, when are we going to put something out so families know that this is not mandatory? When are we expecting then that new schedules can be created, and how are we going to figure out what to do with these kids? Because for years, to your point, I mean, some of my older kids all did Auburn too. Like, we've done this with 2 other kids too. All 3 of my kids have gone through Auburn. It's forever been an issue, but we don't have guidance counselors here now to do anything. They don't work through the summer. So how are we going to make sure that their schedules are done with all the other things that happen in those first couple days that they have, and make sure that we're being timely with our communication to families?
So this, just let me get this straight. The students had, you know, a meeting to have this explained, but the parents got a letter. Is that right?
We got
Or
emails
was there a
after the
meeting?
fact.
And
No, we
the
got an
board-
email after the fact.
And the board got nothing.
We got 0.
Okay, so
Right.
what about, is there still an opportunity to meet with the parents?
We were told we were going to have a meeting in our in the email
Okay.
that we received. But we did not have.
The intent is to have a meeting. I think it's closer to the start of the school year, and I think there's still plenty of time. Even when students change their schedules, those schedules are changing up through the first 2-3 weeks of school as they continue to
Okay.
kind of change and shift and balance and all that. And it will still continue to change. In terms of this shift, it's not to move kids around. The Auburn schedule, to put kids who don't necessarily want to be part of this into our traditional classes, that's a pretty simple move because there's 3 things they can pick depending on the program that they're in, and they're pretty straightforward. You know, they'll do an English 4th block, they'll do a math 4th block, and we'll figure out a way to get them government and personal finance, and they'll go that way unless they need chemistry, and we'll work that out with them as they go there. What I would encourage parents is to come and meet with the teachers when they have that night to really listen, to come with an open eye, because it is a change, but I think ultimately it is better, and I think every one of us who's been a part of it and sat it on and listened to the planning and kind of got to where they're at, we're really excited about it because we're excited about the opportunity, and it's something where, you know, if my son decides to go to Auburn, I would want him in these classes because I think they're going to be absolutely great for him. And he's a student who, he's got some learning challenges that are there. He's not the most focused kid, especially in the afternoon. But I think this is an opportunity for him to gain his classes in a better setting than sitting in a 90-minute block of class where he can tune out after some time. So I think that does provide opportunity. I think really listening to what it is and having the opportunity to meet the people who are directly involved, and not myself or Mr. Hall, but to really meet the people who are going to be boots on the ground working with your student is going to make all the difference in the world and really impact who's a part of it, because they're going to understand that these are people who are in education for the right reasons, because they really care about kids and they care about students learning, they care about kids mastering.
How many kids will be in a classroom?
What do you mean?
So, how many
Like in
kids?
here, you mean?
How many kids will be in a certain area?
It would depend on what we're teaching that day. So if we're teaching English and math, chemistry that day. You would have kids that would be in the chemistry lab for a certain amount of time, kids that would be in Mrs. Lucas's room for a certain amount of time, kids that would be in this area probably here for a certain amount of time. And then once that time is done with the lessons that they've given, they would rotate to.
So what's the aggregate number of students in that environment?
It could be anywhere from 24 to 28 kids.
And then they're
which is
broken up
normal.
into 2 or 3 different segments?
Yep. 3 sections, I think, is what it is. I gotta review. my
3
notes.
sections, you
3
think?
sections, I think. Yep.
So can I ask a question? This is like kind of, it's not really off topic, but we post all of our curriculum materials online. And so, right, I mean, like parents have links, we ask for all that stuff. And so if we give people personalized learning options and they choose to research X to come up with their topic or whatever, how are we on earth going to be starting to post those types of materials online?
It doesn't change.
I mean, I know it doesn't change the
The standard.
standards.
That's, yes, so it doesn't necessarily, the standards don't change, and we post the standards and the mastery of the standards that are there. I don't think we post the math book isn't necessarily online that we get to, but what we post is the fact that they're going to master
X, Y, and Z.
qualitative or quadratic equations. So how they get to master quadratic equations looks different, and that's part of the professional.
Now, is that 11th grade?
response. I think it's actually
Actually
freshman.
starts in 9th grade.
It actually
Eighth
starts in
grade.
ninth.
Kids have gotten smarter?
Well, it's just-
Standards have gotten harder.
Right, that's right.
Algebra has been.
Sorry
pushed.
about that, yeah.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
No, but
I got you.
that's-
If you need help with math,
Yeah,
I got you.
well, I
So
might
when
talk
we look
with
at
you.
what
Yeah,
the
it's all
English
good.
standards are, it's about composing an argument, it's about making an argumentative essay and supporting it with resources.
But don't we provide lists of materials in
thought
some
we did.
cases? I thought we did.
In some cases, we
Did we not
provide
talk about it in the curriculum last year?
lists that
No,
are-
I thought we did.
It's not, it is the
that
standards
again.
that they're
Lists of
gonna-
materials. Did we not talk about that in the curriculum committee last year, that those were all posted?
I thought some of the materials were actually
was
posted,
that
which
this
is
year?
why I
I
guess,
swear it was
because
last year.
that's what the parents were all like up in arms about.
Yes.
They want to know what the materials. Well, now if they don't know the materials, we're going to get back into
That was
that
part of
whole.
the website now.
that whole-
Nick, is it not?
So I
The ones
thought,
that were board approved are on the website.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
okay.
thought that there was some transition and there's a certain amount, but not everything.
Right, well, I mean,
that's how it
right.
goes
I
with
mean,
everything.
that's how it's going to go with everything, and right, and that's how we find ourselves. I don't know, like every
So
single.
when we
book
run
that
a, so for English, which would have probably the most flexibility of all of them, when we run an English thing, it's a research topic. The research topic is research on, here's the general broad topic, but we don't post every single topic that they could research in the material that they're going to look at and all that. And in fact, I would argue our students just go to the web and use sources, they source it on the web. Those sources that are there, we don't post about those sources.
Well, I mean,
but the
if we
base-
say, well, yeah, it's a topic of your interest, and it's,
I can't see the front.
I don't know, some kids might be
I don't know what
interested
you're
in some
talking
really
about.
weird things, and so,
Okay,
you
that's
know,
what I thought.
they want to personalize their learning and research X.
It's on the curriculum page, Nick just said.
Maybe not. Do you know what I mean?
If you're
Like,
talking about having something that is appropriate, of course.
right.
Yeah, it's not going to be like, you want to research a topic that is, let's say, risque or definitely not appropriate for a high school.
Like, we're going to be able to, like,
Yes.
Yes.
monitor
Chemistry is
that
a great
prior
example. We're going to
to.
learn how to chemical compounds and all that. We're not going to teach kids how to make meth. There's a big difference. And like,
They can watch Breaking
like
Bad
what-
for that.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's still.
So the standards in the material are still the same. It's how they're taught is a little bit non-traditional. It's not always standing in front of the classroom for 50 minutes and then go work on these worksheets.
Yeah.
The resources
Check the
haven't
next
changed. Algebra 2 is still SOTIS. Right? And quantitative reasoning is the curriculum that is given to us by the state. So if that's what you're asking.
I mean,
it's-
I'm just asking,
Yeah.
when we say, they're going to be able to direct their own topics of interest and learn, and then how they reach their learning mastery.
They still have to hit the standards.
They still have to hit the
Yes.
standard, but how they get there.
So chemistry, go back to chemistry and chemical compounds. If I'm going to build a carbohydrate, I can draw the model out, or I can actually take the model kits and kind of put the sticks and the balls together to kind of make whatever that compound is. But I'm still learning what the carbohydrate looks like, where the single bonds are and the double bonds are, and what those mean, and all that. I'm just using different methods to get to that aspect of it. Or do I want to generate it through an AI program where I look at if that's available to me? So I think those are the differences. But in terms of the actual resources. We're not buying a whole bunch of new resources and curriculum and everything else.
No, you're just talking about quantitative and qualitative reasoning. I mean, basically a couple different ways of approaching something.
No, it's a state curriculum that we follow.
Well, I know that, but I mean, in the
State
classroom with
resource.
groups, sometimes you're gonna be into different ways of teaching.
We present a problem, and I've never taught the class because I was in this role before these became real, but when we would teach parabolic motion, there's lots of ways to teach parabolic motion. So you might have kids that go, look, I want to use a graphing calculator. I want to show where the intercepts sit. I want to show the axis of symmetry. I want to show how it grows, where its peak is, where its bottom is. I used to call them ceilings and basements, those kind of things. And then we'd have kids that would go, look, I think I figured out how to shoot a jump shot at a certain height because they understand its parabolic motion and how it hits. Or the kids that would talk about how baseball comes off a baseball bat on a fly ball. How lights reflect in a headlamp on a car. It's parabolic. Or even
Right, so
in
you're
a
talking-
flashlight. So I'm saying that is high level stuff.
Yeah.
And that is more high than opening up a textbook to page 220 and solving how to do a quadratic equation by factoring, completing a square, graphing, or quadratic formula. That is so much better. And they'll have those opportunities possibly, but there might be the kid that needs to do that, and that's
So you're-
okay.
you're
So
talking
they're showing
it's mostly
standard.
quantitative, but some kids are going to go into the qualitative, but it's not part of the classroom measurement.
They'll still have to show it on both.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
They'll still have to
They'll have to
demonstrate.
show it.
They'll still have to
Yes.
But it's
demonstrate
not the
they can
norm,
do it.
right? So, I'm just saying, you can go in different arenas.
It's not
And
a traditional approach,
It's
if
not
that's what
traditional,
you're
right.
asking. Yeah,
Right.
not necessarily, but it could be. Because if that's what's good for that kid,
Exactly.
that's what we do.
Exactly, for that student,
Yes.
but the parents aren't going to get that
Well,
in a description.
okay, I got you.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. So, I mean, there's opportunity, okay,
There's-
we're wandering off a little bit. I was looking at narrow channels of opportunity that are going to happen, but it's not written. It's not written. Like when you go online, you're not going to see that in the course description.
You can't.
That happens in the matter of the teaching.
All you have to do is go on ODE's website, it's right there, because that's where it's
Well,
coming from.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They'll
Yeah.
see that the students in this, who are taking the class in this way are going to be exposed to and be taught the same exact standards as students who get the class in a traditional setting. It may look a little bit different for some of those students. It may look the same for some of them, but they're going to get the same standards
I
along the way. And there's
We're
no
talking the
change.
same language.
Yes, absolutely. It is. They're going to be held to those same high standards that every other student is, if not higher.
So
So
full
again,
circle
how are we
back.
communicating with families about choice? And
So
when
we
are
will
we
do,
doing that?
we will do a parent meeting, close to the beginning of the year. We will provide the opportunity for choice for them. As they have questions, we would like them to kind of learn from the teachers as well as Mr. Hall, and anyone else who is, Dr. Malakers will be there as well when we have that parent meeting at night to come in and see the program. And if you're still adamantly against whatever this is, after you've kind of had a chance to really be exposed to it, hear about it, kind of really learn what it is and not just, kind of that, then we will allow the opportunity, we will schedule those general classes and make that work. We will also make those classes work as students are in it and they're like, you know what, I thought it sounded okay, but it's not for me. Like, that's the same as any other class. We're going to have that opportunity. The difference is, I think it works both ways. I think it's if you move out, you're out, and moving in is going to be that's the struggle to move students in. But we can look at what that looks like too, depending on where we're at. And I know this will work. I know it's going to be very successful. I'm convinced in who the people are who are doing it, and it's going to be successful because of the people we have there. And I know it's going to get great results. And it's the first year. I also know I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to be smooth sailing. There's going to be some rough seas. We're going to work our way through it, but once we get through those, to be able to expand it to all juniors, to all seniors, as we get through, because once our juniors get it, they're not, those who are fall in love with it, we can't put them in normal classes next year, so we need to continue to look to expand it with a new group of teachers and what that looks like. I'm really excited about it, and I think it's going to be a great thing. I think it's going to be great for this district. I think it's going to catch on throughout, and it's like I opened with, it is absolutely in line with our strategic plan. in truly finding different ways to deliver content to all of our students to make sure that
So
they're.
what grade or grades will this be introduced?
Just juniors.
It's juniors this year because we needed a pilot group to work with. We want to expand it to next year to all juniors and seniors.
Okay.
And then we want to expand from there. I'd love to open it up campus-wide. That gives some people a little bit of, there have been some checks and we need to have those checks to kind of make sure that it's successful along the way. But then it's also how do we locate this and where do we move it to? And all of that, because finding the large spaces we need it, those are other issues that we get to. So it's as we're looking for this, we're also looking as to the how and the where.
So would this expand any further from 11, 12 down to 10?
In an ideal world, I would love it to be an option all the way for any high school credit-bearing course. So our 8th graders take high school courses as well.
Are there schools out there that have expanded it all the way to that?
Hawken Mastery School is a great one to look at. Yes, I understand that it's Hawken. They teach a little bit different. Mayfield goes through their freshmen because they're from. We're unique because we have 8th grade here. But again, it goes to the middle school model, and the middle school model does offer choices. Yes, there are schools who do it. Talmadge is another one who does it.
There are
There's
a lot
one
of
in
private schools that do this.
Cincinnati. There are a lot of private schools who offer this mastery type of learning, and it's a whole lot different. And I mean, I would say nationally, Hawken is the one to look at as to how
I was
they
going to say, I thought Gilmore does it
go
too.
about it. Gilmore does it, but Gilmore takes their model from the mastery school at Hawken. Hawken has 2 schools, but the mastery school is the one that they really look at. There are some schools that do it better than others. Mason is another one. Twinsburg is expanding. Like I said, Willoughby Eastlake as well is starting. I'm not sure where they're going with it, but I know that
I'm not sure they know where they're going.
Dr. Ward is getting there. But they're looking at the same kind of programming along the way as to kind of how we provide this personalized choice. Because
Talmadge and Perry as well.
yeah, Perry
here.
does it with their elementary kids. They do a great job. They're looking to expand it to their high school too. I forgot about Perry.
How many have you identified? How many days into the school year can a student be removed from that program and incorporated into a different program where there's a reasonable expectation of success for that student?
We would follow what we do normally with guidance in situations that are traditional. That's usually within a 2 to 3 week period. But in our schedule, in our framework, it could be quicker because the block is 90 minutes. Like I said, that's like having 2 days in one. So within 2 weeks, you're almost half a month, or actually a little bit beyond that in terms of instruction with the Friday days that alternate. But I don't know if that's necessarily enough time because of the short time to actually get to know your kids really well.
I think the other thing too is that maybe I'm listening to this wrong. The conception that we're going to just take a kid from this and drop them into a class and say sink or swim. That's not what we do. We want to make sure that they're successful. We want to make sure that they get the supports that are there. And I think we would set up those supports as we move them into it, especially with something like this that's new. And knowing the people who are involved in it to make sure that they have the supports that they can be successful, to feel caught up along the way if this model doesn't work for them.
So, and I'm not necessarily talking about a student that might have difficulty in a lot of classes. Sometimes the brain just doesn't work a certain way for certain people. And you move into a classroom where your brain doesn't really grasp that. And you might be an honor roll student. So all I'm saying is, how much time can you go into a class? Because if a student's more introverted and not extroverted and they're not speaking up, are you going to catch that? How far into it, how?
I think we will catch it, and I would say we will catch it quicker in an atmosphere that's personalized like this than we would in an atmosphere that's
You're
traditional
actually
classroom.
talking about the need for personalized learning. I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm hearing you say because
Because I think a student who's introverted isn't going to speak up when they need help.
no, they don't.
They just stay quiet and they
Just
fail.
stay quiet and they fail.
Yeah.
Even our gifted students are the ones that are the most guilty of that because they will try to
Cover because they should be successful.
they're trying to fight through it a lot
Yeah,
of times.
yeah.
And almost I don't want to use the word embarrassed, but they don't know how to ask for help.
Right.
So that's tough.
So I'm trying to express the need to identify these students so they can be put into an environment where they can be successful.
That's part of that inventory that Doc was talking about, so we know, how they learn best, what their styles are, try to match that in our classrooms and in our instruction. And yeah, we have professional development that has to be done, there's no doubt. But like I had said to you earlier, most of our teachers are already doing this. They just don't know that that's what it's called.
Yeah.
So.
Can we get some, assuming that you're planning on moving forward with this, can we get some periodic updates on how many students we had to move out of the program because they weren't being successful, what the timing of that was when you noticed it? Like, just, if we could document some data on it so that then we have some
I'd also
better
like to provide the
information.
successes that are
You know,
coming from
well,
it as well. Yeah.
right, I mean, I get it, but, like, just
Yeah,
so that we have
absolutely.
some better information so that if the plan is to then expand it in the
If-
future, that we have already recognized that we've heard about it, that we understand what the pitfalls are gonna be, that we know that these are the students that may not be successful in this program going forward because we've identified what the typical student that's not successful is looking like. There might be certain traits that, you know what I mean, like all those kinds of
Absolutely. I
things.
think
Your
the
data
learning
person,
inventory
like,
work is key to it, and I think too, once we get that, if we get a learning inventory, do that building wide and have those learning inventories, then we'll know, and also, empower our students even how to select what's appropriate for them. Because I think choice is key to all of this.
Who would be analyzing the learning inventory data?
So teachers will work to learn to analyze it, and we're working on a way to make sure that it's accessible to those who need it. That would be through some sort of database or through
I
an
was going to say,
IC
is there a
program.
program that you can actually
We're
input?
we're looking into some of what that looks like, and whether it's in. Sometimes those canned programs aren't always the best,
It's not perfect.
but it's so it's what is out there that serves our needs and meets our purposes. And we're using a couple that are, they're not necessarily learning inventories, but they bring in a bunch of different resources. The learning inventory itself and the learner profile is a key to it, and it really is kind of taking a look at what that is. And I
If
think
we had a data guy that could teach people.
Well, that's part of it. Yeah, that's part of what I plan to do.
How to look at the data.
yeah, if we knew of one.
they might
but-
know how to do a pivot table.
Well, we could put them in pivot tables just for fun, but I think I think that's a part of the next steps to bringing it to making it more successful in terms of a larger scale, and really kind of making it open to all and offering even more choice. Because I will say that the block schedule is successful for some, it is not successful for all.
Well, we can talk
We know
about
that.
education, and that
We
becomes
can talk about
circular,
whatever,
and
but
we
more
can talk
options.
around that circle forever,
Yeah,
right?
and-
What we're trying to do is catch a few extra percent where we can be better.
I would even say what we're trying to do is provide more options for everyone involved in the room to not only keep our teachers retained as to what they're good at, to put them in the right spots, and to put our students where they are the most successful.
And I'd like to say this, I'd like to get to the point where we're developing our kids to have a passion for learning. Because right now, what we do is compliance. And I'm not talking about Riverside, I'm talking about public education. It's compliance. They don't necessarily have that. So what are we actually measuring? Do you come to school every day? Do you do all your assignments on time? Do you turn them all in? Are you prepared? Probably do pretty well on your assessments when that happens. Where we're giving our kids a chance now to actually find that pathway that they want to be on, and we're going to guide them. We are not cutting them loose. We are there to try to help them develop that.
Right, so what we're talking about is a little bit more involved teaching,
Yes, absolutely.
okay? And therein lies, I think, the huge opportunity with a program like this, because when you have more involved teaching, you're touching that student, you're going to get more feedback, you're going to know what adjustments need done with each individual student if the instructor is involved more intimately. And that's what I see the opportunity.
That's
here.
what
And I
we're
think we can
shooting for.
expand and add a few percent that we might otherwise not have success with, or they might not have success. We can help them have success. And I think my goal would be 7%. Can we improve 7% where we don't lose kids through the cracks? I mean, it's a goal, it's just a subjective.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So let me ask this so that we can, I guess, move on. I mean, we've heard everything that I think everybody's asked the
Yeah.
questions. Does anybody have any immediate reservations about letting our administration move forward with this, knowing that we have the option of allowing parents to opt out, whatever, and that we're gonna take an abundance of caution to make sure that we're assessing our students and whatever. Is there anybody at this table who has a major reservation and doesn't want us to move forward with this?
I still think we've moved too fast on this without any discussion prior to doing it. And I think it's one of those things that Auburn students should have been made aware of prior to signing up for Auburn and would be better suited for another year forward. And students and families had a chance to understand what they were signing up for prior to choosing to go to Auburn. I think it's premature, despite the fact that you can opt out. I think it's just premature.
Well,
I still don't agree with it and don't.
No, I agree with that. I think we should have more information earlier. More
Yep.
people should be aware of it. We should certainly be aware of it, and I agree with that. Now, is that going to change where we are?
I don't know, that's what I guess I'm
Yeah.
asking, as a
Probably-
board. Are
probably
we
not.
okay with moving forward with this? Are we not okay? Is this something that we need to vote on? I mean, Dan, like, I don't even know where to go with that. I mean, is there anybody at this table who just doesn't want us to do this?
I'm comfortable as long as the parents are making an informed decision, and that necessitates that meeting. I would have liked to have had the meeting before the school year ended, so,
But that continues to be
we're
my
not
problem.
there,
Like,
so maybe,
all of
you
this
know.
was done before anyone made decisions.
Yeah.
People made decisions to go to Auburn,
But sometimes
committed
you
to
talk to the
programs.
kids first. You know, I don't know which is better. At elementary, I'm so used to, you talk to the parents first and then, you know, you bring the kids on board to address some of those concerns. But I don't know, maybe at this level, it's more kids first, then parents, I don't know. Or
I
is
think
it both?
it probably should have been board first and then parents and
100%.
students. And
Yeah,
whatever.
well, yeah, I'm
Like,
just saying.
so that's why I guess I'm asking that,
I
as
see
the
what
person
you're
who's
saying.
got to lead this meeting, like, is there anybody at this table that, you know, there's only 4 of us at this table right now, so I'm not sure whether it necessitates a vote, but if 2 people at this table don't want us to move forward with this, I don't know how we can continue to do that.
I would be voting to move forward. I would just ask the administration to, when there are ideas of major changes as a major change, that we be more involved in the thought process. And also the parents, I mean, to inform the parents that this is going on with their kids. I think all of that's important, so I think we need to, as a school system, do a better job of information gathering and disseminating. Gathering, discussing, disseminating. Because this appears to be a decision that took months to occur, maybe even longer, and the board is just now finding out about it.
Well, it didn't go through programs and curriculum either. It didn't go through anything.
Didn't go through anything. So I think
No committees.
that we as a system need to do a much better job of communicating that. I think my opinion, this is one person's opinion, I think we're at a place where a lot of time and effort has been put into this. I'm hearing a lot of positive expectation, and I'm expecting that we can have success because of the interest and the time and energy being put into this. I would be saying, my vote would be, I would go forward with this, and I just think that we need to pay attention to each and every student so that a student doesn't fall through the cracks. I think we have an opportunity here to be better as a district, because I'm expecting, my own opinion, and I've been saying this, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7% improvement of reaching kids so that we don't have kids falling off, and this might be an opportunity to do that. My opinion is we would move forward.
And I would move forward with the idea that if parents aren't comfortable or students not comfortable, especially once they enter the program, that there are those opt-outs.
Lisa, my biggest thing is that not so much that I don't think this is a bad idea. I think the timing of it is poor. I think our communication was poor, and that it should be held off for a year until another group of kids, so children can make an informed decision before they go to Auburn, before they even apply to Auburn. Because it's going to be a huge thing for them. I think that we really dropped the ball in the way that we communicated that. Well, we didn't communicate it to our students until after they'd already had their Auburn signing day. All that had been very long done and over with. And parents had no, because that could have been a conversation the parents would want to have with their kids prior to them choosing to go there.
So is there any way that we can do those meetings with parents
I mean, it's summer, right? Like, I don't
We
know that.
can- I mean, we can absolutely set something up over the summer. I think we would be more efficient and better if we did it closer to the school year. It doesn't necessarily, it's not a huge impact on our schedule and the way we utilize our people. I mean, it really isn't. If it's one thing to that aspect, again, I think this is, it's a different way of delivering instruction. The content is the same, the course is the same, all of the material is the same. We are personalizing it, we are putting groups together, we're personalizing it. We don't,
That's not the issue. The issue is the way it was not communicated to us, the way it was not communicated to kids, the way it was not communicated. It wasn't communicated, and I know it firsthand because my kid is part of this. There was zero communication in any way, shape, or form. I'm on curriculum programming. We didn't know about it. I'm a parent of a kid going into it. I didn't know about it. My child signed his letter of intent. He didn't know about it. None of this was communicated whatsoever. And now we're all told, like, but hey, this is going to be great. And it could be really great. But it's the absolute lack of communication whatsoever between parents, district, board, students. There was none. And we were just told, our kids sat in a class, into the lecture hall and were told this is how it's going to be. Never told opt out. And then you're going to tell parents 2 weeks before school, come to this meeting. Maybe some come, let's be honest, a whole bunch of them aren't going to. And now we're so far down the line. And then we're going to say, okay, well, maybe after a couple weeks, this isn't working out, so let's put you back in the regular classroom. And now this kid is also still farther behind. I have a very serious problem with this still. Like, I'm not disagreeing that I think this could be really great, but I think this was executed really, really poorly. And I think that it's going to, there's no part of me that will tell any parent that I'm behind this
So,
whatsoever.
Okay, so of the 113 students that supposedly are involved here, could be less, you said.
Could be more. 13 more on a waiting list. It could be 127.
How many, have you gotten feedback from other parents? Are there similar concerns or pluses, minuses? What has been the feedback?
that has gotten to me, there has been very little feedback on it, other than the two board members. There's been very little.
Yeah, my son would have told me about it had I not asked him.
I don't think there's,
High school
and
juniors.
personally, I don't think there's feedback because parents don't know that
They don't
feedback.
even
They
understand
don't
what
even,
they
they don't
don't
even understand what it is. Like, I didn't understand what it is, right? Like, I probably.
I think,
Hence the reason why we're having this meeting is because I don't even know what it is, and at the end of the day, right, parents don't know what to question, they don't know that it's gonna be different, they, I don't wanna say they don't take an active interest, but stuff happens and they just go with it, because
Right.
I don't have a choice, like, right, I don't know, I'm not a fan with the way it was executed. I'm really struggling with whether or not we should hold off for a year. I get it that I have complete faith and confidence in the instructors that have been chosen for this program. I
Sure.
get it.
It's
Like,
nothing to do with them.
I absolutely, I know who they are. I value what they do every day implicitly. Like, they are top notch. And I feel like, yes, we probably will have some successes. I get it. I'm not sure I'm just not sure that we are ready to move forward with it, because there's so many open questions and parents haven't had the opportunity to provide their input. And, well, my kid wants to take band now, like at the last minute they're going to be able to take band. Like, I don't know, like, right, I'm just not sure about those things. I don't know if we're jumping the gun. And if we had done it, I mean, we did all this work, but because nobody knew about it, it's
My
like,
question is, why wasn't the board made aware of this whole process?
I mean, it's a big change, I think.
Huge change. No committees and no board. Just done in a vacuum.
so I will say that to me, and to my person, I will own this from that, it is a difference in the way we deliver instruction. The courses are the same, the content is the same, all of that.
You're talking about a third of our student body, though.
It's-
It's not. It's just
We don't
not.
we don't necessarily tell parents at times when putting you in honors ELA 2 and the class is completely personalized. That's just the way that class is taught by that teacher. When we teach in
But
that.
I
But
think
that's not really an
they're already
answer.
And-
choosing that class. They're choosing
sure.
that class.
So when you choose, To some extent, but there are multiple teachers who
Right,
teach
but the
honors
question was,
the
why
other
didn't the
two.
board know and why didn't it go through committee? Why were we completely left
Yeah,
in the
tell
dark
them as
until,
parents.
until I found out as a parent? We
Yeah.
still didn't know. We wouldn't even be having this conversation still, had I
No,
not
and
found out
I
as a
would,
parent.
I would agree, that was a mistake. That was a mistake that we made, and we own that mistake. And I will tell you that that's, you know, that is something that
And-
when
and-
we got through and thought about it, what we saw was nothing but we are fixing an issue, we are fixing an ill with the fact that we don't provide our students with opportunities for 4 classes. They can do a shortened English class and then 2 other classes in the current schedule that we had. It was a solution to that. It was a solution to some of the ill wills that we had, and we thought we have continued to communicate. We are doing personalized learning, and yes, we're in the field, and I own that we did not assume, hey, should have gone with that. But I think it's not, in terms of a huge programmatic shift, I didn't see it as that. I saw it as a way that we are differentiating the way we're giving instruction. Our Auburn kids have the same classes when they come back. They're with other Auburn kids. They're all in that English class, whether it's 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days. They're all in, you know, 1 of 2 math classes that are offered at the end of the day. They're all in, you know, the same 1 or 2 government classes that are offered at the end of the day. In terms of what their schedule looks like, it is pretty unique to them, with the exception of 1 or 2 outliers who are in those classes as well. But the majority of those afternoon classes that they're in are with other students who attend Auburn. It's not the same programs there, but that's just what they are, and that's the reality of the nature of the schedule that we have. This was a way to take those kids and provide them with more and in a different way and potentially better. And that's why we went with it. I own it should have gone through programs. I made a mistake with that. For that, I do apologize. Do I think it's a reason to delay it and give our kids exactly what we had? You know, not the opportunities to not get everything that they can their junior year and choose Auburn and be in the same English class with less English, especially some of our students who struggle with reading and writing. Do I think that's the answer? No, I don't think that's a great solution. I don't have the other solution for it because of the limited schedule that's there. This was the fix for that. I don't know. That schedule provided us with some limited options. This provides us with what I think is a better opportunity, what is brighter, and what is absolutely more, you know, more robust for our kids to get a stronger education to do whatever they want to do after Auburn, whether it's college, career, or whatever. This provides more opportunities than what we currently offer.
So as a student in this class, I have a question. When did this dialogue start? How long ago? Or has this been a 2-week thought process?
No, this has not been, our teachers have met, they've kind of been on the planet. It started, I would want to say, it was a January, hey, I think it was after one of our transform opportunities where we started to talk about it down in one of our professional learning developments as a team. We started talking, hey, what do you think about this as an issue? And started to kind of run through, and then identifying teachers and bringing teachers in and saying, hey, the teachers, what do you think about this? Will it work? Here's a day to go take it to plan it. They would come back, well, here's our reservations. Then the next, okay, well, what's the next thing? Do you think you're ready for it? And it took some time to kind of get it rolling, but it wasn't a 2-week in any atmosphere. It's thoughtful, it was purposeful, it was what are the strengths in it, what are the weaknesses, what are we missing?
So
And
my statement and ask in this situation is that the board would just be made aware of the process of what a major change is or could be, so that the board might have some input or maybe even have a board meeting about it.
Well, and to your point, you said as a student, students found out on May 24th that they'd have a meeting on May 28th. 3 days before school ended.
So at
It
the
was-
end of
It was set, it was done.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of it, I don't want to derail a good thing just because the execution was not to my liking. For example, I think there are potential wins to it. I'm trying to be reasonable. I'm trying to separate the stuff I like about it, which is the student-oriented stuff and the teacher stuff, and from the execution of it. And I'm astute enough to be able to separate those two things. And as much as I don't want to move forward with it because I think there's gonna be pitfalls and whatever. I believe if we've got to stay on top of those, and if that's gonna be my only caveat, is that I'm gonna say, okay, like, it sounds great, but if we can't be on top of that stuff, and if we find that there are too many pitfalls, like, we've got to put a stop and say, okay, this isn't working the way we planned. Let's regroup and think of something else, and maybe we try again next year. Like, I
really want to say, I'm not afraid to say I made a mistake.
Right, I mean,
I'm
like-
not going to stick with something that's bad. I think Mr. Hall is the same way. I think
Oh,
we truly
Right, I
did
mean-
this with the best intention of all of our students to move forward. We did not,
And I'm
the
not,
intention
right,
wasn't
and
to
I
golf
don't,
like that. The
and I don't believe
execution
that
was
that was.
horrible. I would agree with
Right,
that.
I don't believe that that was the case at all. I
Holistically.
believe everybody's got the best intentions at heart, because I truly believe that everybody here has that in the back of their head, and so, right, I don't want to derail all this planning and all these good things that I think could happen. I just want to make sure that we're on top of things, and I really do feel like we need to take this as a learning experience to move forward and say, hey, communication with parents has got to be better than that, because parents don't have the opportunity to learn, and we throw something at them and they don't know what to ask because we don't tell them what to ask, kind of thing.
Well, and I need to be clear, too, like, I'm not trying to say that I can't separate the two either, because I'm highly aggravated by the way it was done. I just think that the fact that the parents were so far down the path with these kids already going to Auburn, that the fact that they're not going to understand the choice, because there's still going to be a lot of parents that aren't going to be involved in that choice, but if the kids knew in advance, like, I think we...
Right, they're gonna be-
That's what bothers me. It's not about the program, it's not about, I can still separate the fact that you guys didn't do what you should have done. It's the fact that these students should have known before they signed up for Auburn. The parents should have known before they signed up for Auburn. And if you were talking about this in January, the applications didn't close until it was like March. There was time for people to know, and now these kids are moving on, they're excited, we've ordered their uniforms, we're doing all these things, they're excited to go to Auburn, and now there's a whole different way of learning that's going to happen the second half of the day. And what is going to continue to bother me, I don't care how great the program's going to be, it's the fact that people didn't have a choice before they went to apply.
And like
And you can't fix that or change that unless we wait to do it another year.
Right,
That's
and
my
like
whole
with
point.
any program, the communication is vitally important.
It is.
And to be able to prepare and then execute. We can't just go, okay, now we're going to execute. Well, what about the preparing? Well, okay, well, the kids will adjust. Well, that's not the answer, right? And some parents may not have wanted that environment.
I think the parents didn't have enough time to prepare and
Yeah.
adjust when
Yeah.
the staff and administrators.
Well, they've had zero. We've got an
right,
email.
like, we've done that.
That's it.
Internally, it's happened. We didn't know about it, but it was happening internally, and all that adjusting and trying to think of pitfalls and whatever. Parents haven't had an opportunity to adjust, and that's my only reservation. Like, the parents and the students didn't have an opportunity to adjust. Hey, I can take band. Well, I didn't know that. Like,
Well, agree, 100%.
you know,
100%.
so if we can communicate with them and tell them, hey, you're going to have options, and now, like, start preparing, like, if we can start it now, I would start it now, because, right, I know I don't like, some people just have problems, pitfall, or, you know, like turning on a dime. They can't do that, right? Even
And-
parents.
And I feel that all of this was sincerely done to improve things for students.
Without a
So
doubt.
I
Right.
don't want to lose sight of the
Right.
fact that there's more benefit for them if they elect to, and the family elects to do this. But it's just that,
And it may be more
right
benefit for
now,
the
it's a little late, but I don't want to lose a whole nother year of having an opportunity for students.
And I just want to go back to the same thing I've been saying. To identify any students that might be having difficulty early enough so a change could be made for them to plug them into a better learning environment before they're too far down the road where the school year is almost a failure. I think that's imperative. So important. The value of an education, right? Okay, so that's all encompassing, but dialing it down to where you have a student, and I was one of those students that went into a class that I had no comprehension of, and I had to get out of there, okay? That has to be identified early on. I had to get out.
I didn't
They
get
had
out.
I mean, I'll just tell you, I went into an Algebra 2 trig class And my brain did not function that way. And in high school, I had to get out of there and get into a different class. And it happened quickly. And I'm saying if it doesn't happen quickly, if someone's being quiet and someone's not catching that, and now you're 6 weeks in, that's going to be a problem. I think we have to be able to identify that early on. I don't know how that's done, but I think it needs to happen.
You're going to make a great accountant, just not an engineer, because I can't think in concepts like.
Right, okay, I mean, it's just reality. I
Everyone's
think.
wired
So
differently,
can we agree that if we're gonna move forward with this as a district, I know we have like 2 people, okay, I've got reservations, but I'm willing to give it a shot, but I still have major reservations, you're a no. But if we're gonna do this, can we make sure that by our July board meeting, perhaps that we have some plan that we can, you guys can present to the board on how that's gonna look and how we're gonna catch those things, and some better information and how we're gonna let parents know, like, what is all that looking like, and like, what is all that data coming into the
So I'm hearing you say the school district needs to inform all the parents of the kids that are going to be in this program, that this program is happening, and they may not
like, here's
know
the
about it.
meeting, here's
And
this,
that it's
this is what's
optional, and
happening,
you
here's
can
the
opt out. And it's
option. Like,
optional,
I would like to know that we have some plan in place, and what the assessment is gonna look like, and how are we gonna see if it's being successful, like some metrics that we are going to be able to look at as the school year progresses. I know it's kind of hard to decide that, but we should be able to figure some metric out that we're gonna be able to figure out who's being successful, who's not being successful, and at least so that we can have some indication of what that's gonna look like ahead of time, so that we can feel better about having moved forward.
Is there a way to implement with the teachers a way that they could identify any of the students that might not be a good fit?
It's 20 to something.
I think that's definitely.
I think that would be important.
Yeah.
There would be value there.
Yes.
Again, like I'm an
Work
example.
sessions,
I graduated National Honor Society, but I went into a class where I had no clue what I was doing. I needed to get out of there, but if I had been quiet, how long would I have gone and then not been able to plug in somewhere else to get the full benefit of that, or most of the benefit of that?
Yeah.
On the 11th.
July 11th, we have.
Every
a
student's different, and of
work
course,
It's a placeholder.
you may have caught this,
It's a place.
the concern is for the lower end student, and we don't
think
want
the
any of them to fall through the cracks if we can help it.
We can have
I
a
agree.
special report, a special report for the July meeting, is that too long?
I think that's too late.
For me, that was very low end. I needed help.
Scott, if we have a board meeting in 2 weeks, that's probably too soon to have all of that documentation put into place to figure out like how we're gonna be successful. July 27th is probably too late. We have a placeholder on the agenda for the 11th of July. Who's not gonna be here?
I'm out of town working with you.
Oh.
That's,
You're fine, you've been saying.
You've been pretty quiet today.
Yeah, you said a single word, you're okay. We like you here, but it's really okay.
I mean, do you want to keep the meeting on July 11th?
Sure.
So that we can get back together and have that data pulled together?
We have to.
We
Does
have
that
to.
work for you?
We have to, right? That would be almost the very end of where we
I
would
don't know
want
where
to.
your calendar.
I would
So-
agree.
Well, my calendar is fluid all the time.
You're available.
All the time.
He's going to make
That's
himself
how-
available.
That's how my entire career has been. That's how it is, period. So.
I
you know,
think
thank
it's like
you.
anything. If we want the program to be successful, we'll make ourselves available.
Does this necessitate bringing in the teachers to hammer out some of this detail? Is there somewhere?
You're pretty confident?
Yes.
I think we have some of that worked out. I think the person who would know more is Dr. Malacher, who she's, I think, chasing caribou right now. She's over on the west side.
Hopefully not.
Otherwise, in the west. So I think when she gets back in town, to have her kind of sit down for a couple of days, we'll definitely hammer it out. 'Cause then
Okay.
I
So
know
we
we'll
can
be
put,
back.
so should we put the board 11th on as instead of a placeholder, an actual work session?
Yeah.
Sure, we can have another work session.
I mean, I don't think it's not a board meeting. It's just,
It's a work session.
let's just get back together and at least let us hear what those metrics might look like and how we're going to address some of these potential pitfalls that we think might happen. I think that would make everybody more comfortable and how we're going to communicate with parents and those kinds of things, so.
And that would include like dates of parent meetings. And
I think all that should be put together for that meeting.
I want to say
What the communication will
thank
look
you
like.
for
Okay.
your positive thoughts of success.
It's the only way I think. I don't look at things as to what's going to be a negative, even though I know it's there. Here's what I do. I think of how to find a solution to a problem. I don't necessarily just talk about a problem. Right? And I don't always have that solution. I'm not the smartest guy in the room all the time. I'm not the smartest guy in the room most times. But working with groups of professionals and giving them some voice and to work through that, that's very powerful. You talk about changing the culture of a district and of a building, that will change that culture.
Yeah, and I think we can really benefit from that.
Yeah.
And not we, I say we as a district, the students will benefit from that.
It's a mindset, and it's a mindset that I've always believed in. I don't know any other way.
Yeah.
So
I just think that if we can recognize that these might be pitfalls and that we are at least recognizing that they will be pitfalls or whatever, that we know in advance that we are going to have to address some of this. I may not have all we may not have all the answers right now, but it just means, hey, I'm recognizing that that could be an issue and we're going to have to come to a solution on X, but we've figured out A, B, and C, but not X, Y, and Z yet.
we pivot so much in our business. That's what we do. So we come up with a great idea. It could be a great lesson plan. You think it's going to be wonderful, and you come in and it falls flat on your face. So you pivot from it, you learn from it, and you move.
And that's how the
That's
world
what we
is. That's
do.
how the work world is. We do it every
Yeah.
day.
And that's why I asked other districts, how long has this been going on? What kind of history do we have?
What can they tell us?
What kind of
right? Like,
mistakes
what
have
kind of
other
things can they
districts
tell us?
made?
Agree.
You know,
Agree.
it's all of that
We've been
information
talking with
is
them
important.
Along the way.
Well, and I think that bringing all that information on the 11th.
The one that's closest to us that is been, I would say, been involved in this type of learning style, if you will, is Mayfield. And it's right out there. Everything that's on their website, it's there in plain sight. But Mayfield they have a setup that makes it, I'm going to say the one advantage they have that we don't have is their location. And it sounds so stupid, but to have like an open campus, for example, it's possible for them to do that because there's a lot of places for kids to go within 50 feet, for example. That's something that they've embraced with some of their kids.
So they have more space.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they have more opportunity. Like, where are our kids going to go? There's
Yeah.
no place for them to go necessarily.
Right, when you break out, because we were talking about partitions, right? Because you can't be interrupting other groups. I mean, we know what happens then.
To have our kids have an opportunity to take care of their academics in a way that's personalized, but then also be able to get out and be involved in the skills that they're going to be learning at Auburn. That's to me, that's really powerful.
I think there's a
That's
huge
network.
upside.
Yeah.
The upside, I think outweighs the downside, and I think we just need to focus, pay attention to the problem areas to where they might be, so we can catch them before they become a problem. We need a remedy before it becomes a problem.
Yeah, and I think that, if Mayfield has such a strong presence in this area, a meeting might be,
Yes.
or meeting with them to
Yes.
talk about the logistics, because that's what I heard a lot of tonight, unanswered questions or how that might work, but they've done it, and they're doing it successfully. So I'm a big believer in collaborating with other districts.
Yep. Well, we don't want to learn something that we could have avoided
Mhm.
Yeah,
just with some communication.
100%.
And I feel like we should then take this year to study then. How do we think that's really going to work with a larger community when we don't have a campus structure that looks like it? Okay. What is that going to look like? I think, it's just so, anyway, we can talk more about that on the 11th. Are we good with that?
Yep.
Okay. Then I'm going to move on with next meeting announcements. We have a Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting on June 18th at 7:30. We have a Finance and Audit Personnel Committee meeting on June 20th at 7:30 a.m. We have a Curriculum and Programming meeting on June 26th at 7:30. We have Board of Education meeting on June 27th at 6 p.m. Other than that, I would like to now call to adjourn to executive session. So I have a recommendation to, can I have a second?
So, a second.
Be it resolved that the Riverside Local School District Board of Education hereby adjourns to executive session at 8:29 p.m. to discuss personnel matters relating to the employment of public officials, and the Riverside Local School District Board of Education hereby designates all matters discussed in this executive session as strictly confidential and finds that this designation is warranted because of the status of this matter and the need to preserve confidentiality to properly conduct the business of this Board of Education. You already have a second.
Who seconded?
I did too.
Can we call the roll, please?
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Jennifer Hart.
Aye.
Motion carries, and we will not have any business after the executive session. Okay, so I'll write it down for you.